You guys all just missed a really terrible joke.
It was offensive and cancel worthy, and it came out of my mouth. It's a joke. It didn't.
Absolutely, and it is going to be a manic, crazy crowd. I hope everybody digs that thumbnail, which is put together by the legendary Talix.
It's very fun.
Yep. I love it.
I've never been put into a
I'm just trying to figure out if I'm the manic or the crazy, or both. When you don't know, it might be you.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. If you don't, what is it that the old saying? If you don't know who the fool is at the table. Yeah, good point. Okay, crazy stuff to get a couple things out of the way. I am also doing this on Utreon, and that's an alternate platform a lot of people don't know about. It's very small. Utreon has been good to me. When my channel was nuked in February, 100% of my content was already on Utreon, and it is very comforting to be there. They now have live streaming, so this is live streaming there.
You're not at Odyssey?
I am at Odyssey as well. That happened later on.
Are you at Rumble as well? Because apparently now you can't be on both. You're
oh god,
mortal enemies.
Wait,
we'll talk about
death over there. Yes.
Wait, you can only be on Rumble.
No. I'm not. Oh. Don't clip that and make misinformation. No, it was a joke.
Too late. It's already done. The clips have gone into place.
Words.
I missed these.
Anyway, last time I did a legal panel, we managed to crash Utreon. So let's try it again. I think it'll be kind of fun if everybody can go over there and give them a little bit of traffic. The CEO definitely wants to test the system. I'm dropping the link in the chat. It's also in the description. So, support alternate platforms, if you will. It is very, very, very helpful. Also, early on, Allison Morrow is going to be joining us. And
ooh, we can see your DMs.
Your messages are open.
It's
a rule of live streaming.
All right. You guys killed me.
Panic.
That's why I have quick eyes. Okay, guys. I'm with all the pros. Keep in mind, I'm the new guy here. Good Lord. Anyway, Allison Morrow has gotten herself suspended again. Another strike by YouTube. So it's really important to help her out. I will be tweeting it out or retweeting what she has. Everybody, please consider retweeting it. Yes, quote unquote medical misinformation, because she had a guest on who quit their job, I think, because of the Fauci juice mandate. And for whatever reason, they're going through her back catalog.
Sure.
And it's getting, very, very frustrating when they're all, cherry picking stuff that's been fine. Now suddenly it's not fine. What's going on here. So.
And on that note, I'm scrolling through my catalog. I noticed that they went and demonetized 2 older videos. One was on Don Lemon and the other one was on Rittenhouse. I'm just looking to see if both have been remonetized or just one. But it's interesting. They've definitely gone back, or they've adopted something new that has gone and rescanned stuff that had hitherto been monetizable.
Recently demonetized as well, but I kind of deserved it. So my Tubin video made a whole bunch of inappropriate jokes. So
no.
Well, at least it was worth it. And by the way, folks, we're
definitely worth it.
Speaking of demonetized, we're 5 minutes into the show, and
we're 3 minutes in. We're 3 minutes in.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a 407.
What could
You're
we
right.
possibly said there?
Eric once upon a time thought it was me on his channel that was flagging his videos, but I don't even get demonetized that quickly.
I don't know.
It is remarkable. I don't know. I may have figured out a way around it. I don't know for sure. I've got some people asking around to see if it's true. If so, I will share it with everybody, but I'm pretty sick of it. And the meme is old, I'm sure, for a lot of people. And I hope to retire the meme, YouTube. Please let me retire the meme.
I would get on chat with them and see what the deal is. I have to go get a dog. By the way, has anyone ever seen a Canadian $5 bill?
Sure, I live in Michigan.
They're lovely.
A while ago, last time I was
Monopoly money. Let me go get Winston, and I'll be back in 1 second.
All
I
right.
like Canada's play money. It's very fun. It's sparkly. Some of it's got see-through bits. It
doesn't look real to me, though. Is it something about, you're so used to your own currency that anything different looks like it's play money or fake money?
Oh, when I was growing up, we used to get public TV from Canada. I've been in Southeast Michigan forever. And so I learned that the quarter has a caribou on it, which is a song that they used to sing. And I got in trouble because, as you might know from living in the United States, a quarter does not, in fact, have a caribou on it. So living in Southeast Michigan gets you all sorts of stuff. Gets you hockey broadcasts, gets you things about caribous on quarters. And before 9/11,
chips.
What?
Do you get all dressed chips?
Well, I can. They're right across the bridge.
There you go.
Yeah, no. So yeah, and when I was younger, before 9/11, what it also had was casinos. So and younger policies. So we would visit Canada a lot
for all the fun things.
Yeah,
you guys get
just
different
for the Canadian culture. The casinos, nothing to do with any of that, of course.
You guys get different Kinder eggs in the States than we get in Canada.
Yeah, they're terrible here.
More or less dangerous here?
I think it's less. Well, I would say that if you swallow the candy, apparently a number of people did in fact choke on the toys inside in England.
Really?
But
no.
So here ours is in a little yellow capsule inside the chocolate, and I think in the States it's divided in two. The toys on one side and the edible side is on the other.
Interesting.
Just in case.
Okay, so
lawsuits, lawyers.
Yeah. Let's go. We'll start off with Emily. I guess the first verdict came in. Josh Duggar, can you fill us in?
I can fill you in. There's a lot of galloping misinformation on the internet about Josh Duggar's conviction.
Shocking.
He was convicted on 2 counts. One is a lesser included. I understand that the difference between consecutive sentencing and, and sentencing one after the other is difficult. So there is the misinformation out there that he's facing 40 years. He's not facing 40 years. Both counts carry a maximum of 20 years, but again, lesser included. So he'll be sentenced at the same time for those if he's sentenced on both. If the judge chooses to, the judge may stay a conviction on one of them and not sentence on both. Just depends on the judge's own practices. Sentencing should be in about 4 months. Everybody's like, why does that take so long? There will be a full sentencing hearing. This is a federal case for possession of images of illegal shit with kids. And so that the
technical term
will have a full
You got to do it.
They can bring witnesses, they can bring character witnesses, they can just do sentencing memos. I imagine the judge will take it under advisement and write a really thorough sentencing memo. If the judge decides to depart either upwards or downwards from the sentencing guidelines, again, being different than the statutory maximum. People are like, well, can't he just depart upwards of the statutory maximum? I'm like, no. That's not what that means. The statutory maximum is 20. The statutory mandatory minimum is 5. He will go to prison. The minimum is 5. The maximum is 20. The judge can pick a number in between there. The sentencing guidelines, I haven't looked on this case. I imagine they're probably 5 to 8, and then in that like 12 to 15 range, and then like the 18 to 20 range. So the judge could pick the middle of that. I doubt he'll pick the top of that. There's no prior convictions. There are prior bad acts, but the prior bad acts occurred when he was a juvenile and there was no conviction. And generally, juvenile convictions do not count against you to raise your sentence. If you are later convicted, they're also 20 years old. It doesn't make them less bad, but for sentencing considerations, they're not always given the same weight as something from a few years ago.
Was he locked up right after, or
he was remanded immediately into custody? Okay. His new mug shot is a very smug shot. It is very much it is. I'll send you the link to it if you want to pull it up. I just caution you that when you pull it up on stream, please expand it because his address is on the top of that booking.
Okay.
He didn't use his business address. I mean, I realize it's public information, but also just like a fair heads up on that. But it is a very smug looking mugshot, which is very odd to me when you've just been convicted of these things, when people have testified about prior bad acts that were before not really they were known, they were talked about, they had been alluded to, but people didn't know the details of them, and we now know all of the rather in-depth details.
All right.
What do you
2 questions that I had.
Smugness is a choice.
Yes.
I forgot.
Okay, do you have it zoomed in so when I bring it up on screen, it's going to be obscured, Emily?
No, I did not zoom it. If you want me to share my screen, I can absolutely do that, though.
Oh, well, Darth shared it. Okay. You have it blown up. Okay. Here we go.
Thanks, Darth Crypto. Yes, perfect. See.
Yeah. I don't know why there's any kind of a smile there.
What Emily, what
he has an appeal case or something? I don't understand.
It just feels like an odd choice, but also maybe it's just it. I mean, to the benefit of the doubt, it could just be shock.
Well, he's known for making good choices. So.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's got to be surreal. It definitely has to be
Duggar's
surreal.
to me.
Emily, the in the euphemisms that are acceptable to YouTube, the charge for which he was found guilty was possessing imagery,
possessing and receiving. He was found guilty on 2 charges, but the receiving carries a 5-year mandatory minimum up to a 20-year max, and then the possessing is a lesser included of that, with has no mandatory minimum and a max of 10 or a max of 20. I apologize. So there's those 2 counts, but they will be sentenced concurrently, not consecutively. The word that ran away from me earlier because I've talked so much in the last 3 days. I am exhausted.
Sure.
Okay. Very quickly, Allison has made it to the channel. Now let me do a better job. Impromptu, or not impromptu, incognito, folks. Incognito. Okay. Incognito mode. Allison, tell us what's going on.
I'm suspended again from YouTube.
Yay.
Good job.
And this is a video from, I think, September. It's definitely several months ago. So either I got reported or they're combing through old stuff like they said they were going to. I happen to think that they're probably combing through old stuff. And as they announced that they were going to start cracking down on what they consider to be medical misinformation, this is the second video that they've taken down with a doctor who either quit or sued or in some way pushed back about the vaccine mandates. So this one was ICU doctor quits over vaccine mandate with Dr. Molly James, just talking about how she left her jobs in both the sort of Minnesota area and New York City, where she had been working tirelessly as a COVID ICU doctor because she already had COVID. She's citing her natural immunity. Same with Dr. Cariotti. That was the other video they took down and suspended me for. Now they're taking down Molly James. I'm suspended again and locked out of my channel. With Dr. Cariotti, they apologized after we did this Twitter dance, which we have to do every single time this happens. And they said that it had been restored and I was let back into my channel and that they had shared the information with whoever makes these decisions so that it won't happen again. But it happened again. So who knows? Anyway, if you want to see my stuff, you won't see me on YouTube for a while.
Allison, hold on, but it doesn't say the suspension is not in this YouTube notification.
Well, yeah, it's not in the notification, is it? But it told me I'm locked out of my channel. So
that's
let
what
me
I'm
go
trying to
into
figure
my
out.
channel and just make sure.
So
because that talks about taking the
because it's
video, just removing the video.
Allison,
you're right. Maybe I'm not. Did they remove another? Well, it's my second strike, but it's saying community guideline strike 1.
Well,
yes,
it would
so
be
very
you, because they've overcome it, and you should be down to a warning again. But
there's
I think
a time limit too.
But
you're right.
Okay, so you see, but you might have restricted features, like you might not be able to to live stream for 2 weeks or something.
Yeah, the last time they gave me a warning, chapters didn't work. I have no idea why those are connected at all.
True. You're right. It says due to community guideline strikes or copyright issues, you can't live stream at this time. So it is saying I can't live stream. It looks like if I press upload a video, that I could upload a video. Let me just try.
It's the little purple referee with the yellow card, you know.
Yeah, because it goes through their system though. They can scan it before they allow it to go live with uploading.
I'm suspended. No, I'm out. They won't let me upload either. So back to square one. Yeah.
And they pause monetization. Oh, your existing videos are still monetized, right? They didn't change anything.
Did they say that again?
They didn't change anything with monetization, did they?
No, it looks like I'm still monetized, but yeah, I can't upload or go live for a week.
Having seen this before, I continue to remark on the condescension that they build into their boilerplate notification email.
Right. Sorry.
We know this might be disappointing, but it's important to us that YouTube is a safe place. I also like that.
Mad at us. That's on you.
Yeah, just from a legal perspective, I like that the language at the top of that says we think it's a violation of our policy. They don't even commit to it is, which they're asserting by removing the video. YouTube,
Yeah, that's a good
the
point.
black box of YouTube, man. I tell you.
That's a good point.
And they refuse to tell you what it is. That's a violation
Oh.
too. That's always the
Well,
best.
you made it
appeal
not a
That's
safe
always, yeah, that's
space,
the best
so-
part.
And you appeal it
It's gotta be
directly
a safe space.
back into the black box. So I mean, I got lucky. I'm told I got my warning reversed, but there's nothing
You've
that you
only
can do.
gotten
You don't get
one?
enough info.
You've only gotten one.
Yeah, well, and I got
Amateur
one in
hour.
the same. I got one in the same fashion. So I had a video talking about tech censorship with a certain letter affiliated organization as what was happening on Twitter from a year before this happened. And then I get a letter just like that one accusing me of cyberbullying and harassment, which if you go onto YouTube, you get to that screen, it says this video was pulled for cyberbullying and harassment. I said, you guys, you can't put that up on my public facing, law firm affiliated channel. We got to talk about this. And I might have said it in some additional words in the appeal document that I sent in, and it got reversed because I wasn't talking about the letter affiliated organization. But yeah, that was wild to me to have it happen a year on. I was like, what are you doing? So they definitely go through and sift on occasion.
No, they tweak whatever are the bad, naughty words of the day, and it goes and automatically crawls everything that's already there, and it flies.
How would you know?
No. Well, how would you know that? Well, that's the
old.
issue about issuing a sanction. It's one thing to take the video down, but to issue a sanction on the channel, I mean, that's like double jeopardy to some extent, especially, by the way, Allison, I don't know if in your case, especially if the video was already green lighted or already reviewed. I've had stuff that has been reviewed and approved get re-reviewed and then demonetized. I've never had any strikes or anything, but I've had two, Allison, same time. One was from September. It was a Rittenhouse discussion. The other one was from November. It was Don Lemon upcoming trial. And I don't say the bad words in the videos, but we'll see. One of them got remonetized. The other one is still pending.
Well, you talk about chilling effect, right? I mean, we all know like how to say things in specific ways that are not helpful to communication and the things that we should be talking about, because we know a robot somewhere is going to look at that word and say, "Uh-oh, bad things now."
Yeah. It's unfortunate that there are doctors and scientists who are actively having conversations about what's going on right now as doctors and scientists do. That's what they do, and it's impossible to allow that discussion on YouTube or some of the other platforms because it's considered medical misinformation to ask questions or to poke holes in acceptable ideas, which is what science is and journalism is too. And that's what I also try to do, and you just can't do either, and it's really unfortunate.
Well, if everybody could, look up or retweet it, it does work. The more people who retweet at Team YouTube, we've had this reverse for Nate. We've had a reverse for Allison a couple times. We've had a reverse for Matt Orfala. We've had it. I mean, it's kind of an old, tiresome thing, but it seems to be the only effective means to solving the issue.
That the only means on a professional platform is a Twitter brigade. Hey, YouTube, look at this. Like that's the means of rectifying a problem, and that is a problem in and of itself.
Yeah,
agreed.
Wild to me.
Yeah, I think my concern with that as the process is it reminds me of when I was a reporter and I would do a story and the public would freak out over what I was exposing. And then it would be something that the state had said they did because of science, right? But then the mob comes after them and then they reverse their decision. And you're sitting there thinking, well, okay, I could have two reactions here. I could think, I'm glad that my work has an effect and I shone light on this important topic, but I'm also kind of embarrassed that the state or whoever it is not really making these decisions based on science or misinformation, as they say, because if they were, then it would stand the test of the mob. The mob wouldn't be able to change their minds because the mob should not be driving science. So by virtue of winning my appeals over and over through these Twitter wars that we wage, it just shows even more so that they don't make these decisions based on science, because if it was on science, then bullying them on Twitter would not make a difference. So if all it is just whoever wields the heaviest stick, that's not science. And so it's just another level of just the insanity of what's going on here. And honestly, I leave you guys with this question because I'm not really quite sure to do or what to do moving forward with the other videos, like with Molly or anybody else who might be even borderline. Do I go through and delete them because I know now that they're going through old videos? I've heard people like Matt Orfala have gotten strikes even for videos they had already deleted. So I don't even know if deleting makes a difference because they still see that you have them and they're still giving strikes. So I don't know what to do moving forward.
I have a really easy solution to this problem. This is the easiest thing they could possibly do. Offer a feature on your account. Because, well, this is the issue. I could have a video. I just started covering these sorts of topics, so I don't actually have any strikes. I have one video where I talked about COVID, and that's the one warning from July. Literally the only time I've ever talked about it since I moved from just crypto stuff into these sorts of topics. All they need is one option that says review my channel, and they give you a green light on all your prior content and you're good to go. They don't do that though, because the narrative shifts. So if you have a video citing Anthony Fauci saying masks are bad from a year and a half ago, and that video is up, the narrative is now shifted, the facts and the science have now shifted, they can flag that video as misinformation, even though at the time it was supported by their own sources. So that's why they don't want to offer that option, because it would kind of expose that.
Well, I think I've got a simple solution. If the video has been up problem-free for a week or over, maybe a month or over, if it's sanctioned, just take it down, and you can't impose a penalty as a result of it, because it's not just the unfairness of the double jeopardy aspect of, I thought this was good for a month, and now I'm being told it's not. You might have created content within that time frame of having thought it was acceptable that they'll come back and strike you for again. So time frame, take it down, fine, if that's the way they want to go, but to impose a penalty if it were criminal, it would be fundamentally unjust, and this is quasi in the sense that
it's
same sanction.
Yeah, in terms of timing, you should be able to say, well, look, you're changing the algorithms. Figure out what the date of the naughty words is, and if my video is made before it shouldn't apply at all. But yeah, if you have to do something, it shouldn't be your big guns. It shouldn't be threatening the whole channel. Definitely not.
Well, we're seeing the problems with this. I mean, Hoeg, you just covered this with the channel that got 150 copyright strikes.
Content ID. Yes. Every 6 months or so, I go in and talk about how bad Content ID is or can be as an abuse. So yeah, thanks, Emily. I was talking, like I said, I do the corporate side of things when all the fun litigation is happening. I love coming to these things because I learn so much. But yeah, there was a YouTuber, totally not Mark, who does critical commentary on anime, including Dragon Ball. And Toy Animation came out and apparently overnight struck everything that had the words Dragon Ball in it. And so in video games, which covers kind of this kind of stuff as well, the outlets started talking about Japanese law. And so I said, all right, well, let's do a video about international jurisdiction of copyright laws and how YouTube facilitates what amounts to breaches of at least certain duties in respect of contemplating fair dealing and fair use by having a worldwide button where you say, oh, it matches what I put up. I'm going to hit worldwide and I'm going to hit block. And then boom, all your videos go, because this guy, I'm not claiming you can sit here and say his stuff is fair use. One, because as YouTube knows, when you take it all down, we can't see it. So you can't even do kind of a facts and circumstances evaluation. But I looked at his other stuff and he's talking over it. He's editing it. He's putting memes in. It is not the one that I always get down on my channel, which is the person with like the video running mostly where you just watch the show in the corner. It's not that. So I can't say one way or the other, but I can say, I don't care what Japanese law is about fair use and fair dealing. When you hit the worldwide button, you take the jurisdiction as it lies, as you might say in golf. And so I did a whole talking about Content ID, and I went into the levels, and I went into the fact that you can lock it out for 60 days, plus the DMCA's 15, and then they can drop it, or they can sue. And there's so much chilling, and YouTube has notes. YouTube has notes on, help answer 4,433 that says, we're going to police the Content ID system. That special folks get to use Content ID. They've already proven their valor and their merit to us. And if they abuse it, we can take it away. We can warn them of legal consequences, all these things. And I was in my comments. I was in my video. I don't know that I've ever seen a news item of YouTube taking Content ID rights away from someone they've granted them to. And here you've got a situation where I'm not saying I know Japanese copyright law, and I know enough to be dangerous that they do have different rules on copyright. They might be right to block what you're seeing on those kinds of channels. In Japan, you hit that worldwide button, we should talk about how you're using Content ID and how YouTube is facilitating it. Because the thing about Content ID that I think gets lost in the wash is that it's not a DMCA claim. They like to call it DMCA plus. The Copyright Office likes to give them cover for these kinds of things. It's a contract claim. It's YouTube and Toy or whoever agreeing that they can tell YouTube to take that stuff down on the auspices of copyright, which is why people get upset. But as I say at the end of that video, it's like YouTube is essentially operating through largesse for all of us. They have a broad provision in their contract terms that says effectively, do we think it could be bad for us? Do we think it could harm us? Do we think it could harm anyone else that we're interested in or not? Then we can pull it. They maintain total control of their platform. So when you're talking about a content creator, they're essentially taking all that risk. Hey, YouTube doesn't need an excuse. So if someone uses their Content ID system, yeah, we can make notes and say you shouldn't abuse it. It's not actually a copyright claim. So what you're really dealing with is not Toy, who's probably handling things wrong. What you're dealing with is a YouTube that is either deliberately not helping content creators or is just trying to stay out of it in a way that doesn't police their own system that they built. And you're left with 150 videos that should be checked in each case for fair use and fair dealing, disappearing seconds after each other overnight through an automated process. So yeah, I did a video on that. I get a little feisty. I like
It's an automated
audience. Well, in fact, I like Content ID, and I described where I like it in respect of I like that you can make that fan video of Farscape with, you know, some Pink music in the background and get that Aaron Soon and John Crichton love video that you've always wanted to make. I don't speak of this from personal experience. I mind you, this is just off the top of my head.
Just a hypo. Just a
random.
I've never done this or watched any of these. Just
no fanfic, nothing.
But you can do that, and then instead of having to go try to figure out how to license it or get a sync license or do all these other things, the music people just say, yeah, that's our money. You get to create the video that you want. That is in existence. The music people get paid, and you might get subscribers because you're a badass editor of music videos with this stuff. Mm-hmm. Everybody wins in that circumstance. But when you get into stuff like this, ooh, I get a little.
Rich, I got a story.
The creator can't respond to them in bulk. Like, you can claim stuff in bulk, but the creator has to respond each by each. And it's crazy to me when you get 150 at once. It's just and with a functional 60-day buffer. If they just want to make you hurt for 60 days, YouTube grants it. Regardless,
too. There's something that's easy to do algorithmically. It's really simple. They can check it. It's so easy to tell if something's fair use if they compare it to the original content because they can identify exactly what changes or what differences there are. So they could do that automatically.
I can speak on this firsthand. Hold on, yeah. Emily and David, you both were involved.
That was a fun story.
Yes, Rich. While we have you and you're a copyright guy, I have a second channel. This is actually my second channel. Because I had this channel, America's Untold Stories. Everyone, please subscribe. I'd love to hit 10,000. We're getting close. This channel, I used footage from a documentary and was doing an analysis of body language of the person being interviewed, which falls under fair use last time I checked.
Yes.
And it was part of 3 different videos. The filmmaker hit my channel with 1 strike. I replied back saying, okay, look, you can claim it. I could take it down. What do you want to do? In response, he hit the other 2 videos and got the whole channel removed. Same day. I went online with Emily was there, David was there, others were there. And we put out the word. The strike was there. I filed a copyright claim on everything. While I was waiting for that to come back, I started the whole channel again. I prevailed. Well, because the whole channel was 3 weeks old. And I thought about it. I was like, you know what? Let me just do this. I did that. I prevailed on the original videos. But then when that happened, I was like, well, I still want this content out there. And the reason I want the content out there is it's about Elliott Smith and it's his girlfriend being interviewed about his death. And that is an open case. And I think it's very important to be out there in the public. Okay. So to be smart, I copied all the clips that I used it and I combined them into one video. The son of a bitch struck that. And
he doesn't need to prove anything. He just does it. I mean, like
and then runs the clock out.
Runs the clock. Eric filed the complaint 10 days later. I mean, however many days later, it got reinstated. But Eric, can you the chat from Aaron Catron? My church live stream is constantly getting copy strikes from YouTube, even though we purchased a license for the music.
Oh yeah,
Rich. I mean, you probably know this as well, but you have to be careful even when you license the music. Sometimes you can only use it for as long as you pay for the license, and then
well,
after.
I'll say on top of that the robots don't care. The robots don't have a flag that you actually licensed this from the folks that use the database, which is where you can really get into trouble. That's one of the ones I see a lot, which is no, I actually I did the right thing. Hired a lawyer. We did a quickie license. I got it in my video. And then it's still part of the content ID process or whatever else they might use. There's other tools that you can use on YouTube. So it just gets dinged. Hopefully, a fully functional YouTube platform, you say, whoa, I licensed it. Quick check around, goes away. In my experience, sometimes that happens, depending on how much cachet you have. Oftentimes it doesn't, and it becomes a problem for what you're doing. The other issue is recordings of classical music get stuck in that database. And regardless of whether it's public domain, regardless of whether you played it yourself, you can get into trouble on these platforms because of those algorithms. Not rightly, mind you, just in terms of what they're doing.
When I wrote back to them, I found out that they had a service, and I managed to get it inserted to where my channel was flagged in their system. So I no longer have been hit. I paid for the license, and I guess they had some sort of mechanism, and I put the channel ID in it, and that cleared it up.
I think they have white lists and things that they use in the background. And they certainly have relationships with certain licensors. But if you're talking about like, my buddy in Southern California made this really sweet piece of music, but he's using it in his own videos, but I want to use it. And he says, it's totally fine. I've got an email or I've got a contract. I've got something real. This is not going to help if YouTube starts swinging at you for that kind of stuff on an automated basis.
Good God.
The best though is when you get copy claims for the music that literally comes on iMovie or some of the music that YouTube literally provides as
in their archive.
Yep. It's I mean, I've just stopped using any music. I use Hook Sounds. If I may plug it, hooksounds.com/Viva Frei. And they're the one that I made sure specifically that they don't screw creators by giving you the license so long as you have a subscription. Any video created within the time frame remains unstrikeable on YouTube.
Soundstripe is pretty good like that too. I made sure when I signed up with them that I would get a lifetime license with it, so long as it was created, so long as the video was created.
During music in your videos and stuff like.
What's that?
I said, look at y'all using music in your videos and stuff like professionals.
This is how they're going to get me. That intro for Virtual Legality is YouTube Audio Archive. That's when I die on YouTube, it's they're gonna just take a full on swing for 740 videos. It is fine.
No.
I've learned to live with it. It's all good.
Well, you're on Utreon.
Music. I am on Utreon. Well, yeah, and then Edward, the CEO over there, I found Utreon. They found me when we were going through the COPPA stuff. I was one of the big lawyers that was talking about YouTube's kind of ridiculous assertions a couple years ago about who was responsible for COPPA, which is them, by the way, and how they were imposing that on creators. And Edward found me through that. He connected me with Eric, who had popped on to one of Nick's streams with me, I think, at some point during that. It's all a blur. It was a long period of time. And so, the one thing I'm going to need from one of y'all is I'm going to need a binder. I'm going to need specific instructions on how to get onto like the 400 platforms y'all are on. Because I don't know what I'm doing. I got on YouTube as a working lawyer to test some things about analytics and, it's grown from there. So
750 videos later.
You're muted, Andrew.
Turns out I liked it, and people keep subscribing. So I'll stop when they stop. Yeah.
Andrew, you're muted. So is Viva.
Yeah.
Yep.
Viva, you're muted as well.
Muted.
We're both idiots.
Funny?
Andrew, you're muted.
Yes.
I'm trying to tell you, you're muted with my muted.
Sorry.
Okay.
I was just yelling that you're in for a dime, in for the whole hog.
Hey.
And he's been thinking about
all
that.
Good. They haven't taken it away yet. We'll worry about that later. I got too much to worry about it already.
Can we got lawyers here, and I want to hear what you guys think, because people are going to accuse me of being biased towards Rumble. Everyone's familiar with the YouTube spat between Odyssey and Rumble.
Yes.
I'm going to read the tweet. Let me read
this tweet is bad. I'll poison the well here. Odyssey went too far.
I agree with quartering. Well, Odyssey went to, but then Rumble looks pretty bad on it.
Everybody looks bad, but Odyssey went too far.
Vicky and Tamara Judge screaming at each other. Like, is it Housewives bad? Is it Flip a Table New Jersey bad?
No,
almost.
about what you accuse
Not
of
quite.
actually imply fraud.
I'll read the original tweet to which the letter of retraction was issued. To which Odyssey, blue check mark. We would never use bots like Rumble to generate fake traffic in order to swindle investors. Average usage time doesn't correlate to the traffic, ! And they have a graph.
And there's a picture, yeah.
And I put emphasis on the fake, the bots, fake traffic, swindle investors
Bots,
to a
fake
company
swindle,
that is
yep.
just to a company that's just announced it's going public if it hasn't already done the merger. But so I know what I think.
Swindle is bad because aren't they direct competitors? Is this a statement to harm a direct competitor in the marketplace as they're going public?
Yeah,
I mean, I can make a case. I can make a case for bots and fake to be kind of opiniony. Swindle, I'm out.
But you know what? Even the bots, that's a factual statement. It's one thing to say the numbers don't correlate. It's one thing to say you think the numbers don't correlate, but you're making a statement of fact that bots are fraudulent methods of it's so fraudulent. All the platforms have it as basically a bannable offense on your own YouTube videos. So I mean, there were three swindle is maybe descriptive, but it's a statement of fact of what they're trying to do. The
swindle
investors.
sounds bad.
Swindle is an accusation of criminal activity to me.
I agree. See, bots, I think, you can float along. Chances are there's a bot somewhere on all these platforms, right? So they got bots.
You can have a friendly bot. You can have an evil bot.
Yeah,
you got bots. Fake traffic. It's like, what's fake? What's real, really? Let's have that conversation.
Let's get very philosophical about it.
No, fake. I mean, all of this, and contextually, it seems like that tweet could be misconstrued or construed as deliberate sabotage.
Because of the timing of it.
Because of the timing of it.
So, okay, good. I'm not alone.
I want you to know, I found this news story backwards. So I'm reading Rumble's letter first. I was like, what the hell could they have possibly said that arrives at this? Because usually you see a letter like that, retract that tweet immediately. And I'm like, all right, sure, boss. And then you go back to the tweet. I'm like, oh, all right.
Incidentally, Rich, that's exactly how I found it too. It's like, okay, I don't like to delete tweets. What are we, in grade school?
Actually, and Rick, I found it one step behind you because I found it from Odyssey saying that Rumble is threatening to sue us. So I was looking through the letter trying to find where they threatened to sue, and I was like, well, I don't actually see that. Like I see at the end they talk about like aggressive action if they don't take it down, which could be construed as some sort of a vague.
Yeah, that's the judge your actions accordingly, or
but it's like I see nothing saying like we're gonna file a lawsuit against you or anything like that. So I was like, I don't know. I don't think you can really say that they're
This is a type of letter that's best finished with regards, not sincerely.
With a love that will echo through the ages.
Govern yourself accordingly.
Govern yourself accordingly is always
true.
The playground lawyer, the lawyer type. But yeah, you see that line at the top of a letter, retract your tweet. I'm going to 90 times out of 100, you're going to go back and figure out what that tweet was. Is going to be BS. It's just companies getting hurt on social media. They don't like it. That one is pretty damn close to the line if it's not over it.
And I was one step even removed from the seeing Odyssey's response. I got it through Karen Borshenko, her tweet, which framed it as a free speech issue. And then I was even one step behind because I saw their response. And I was like, tweet free speach. And then I go read it. It's like, yeah, this is defamation. Accusations of criminal activity is not free speech issue. So I was coming in with an open mind, but it quickly closed when I saw the tweet. And then their response also, Eric, can you bring up their response again? Even their response to Rumbles is
Rumble needs to just retweet that and say, "You mad, bro?" Like,
that's a good one.
Rumble is threatening to sue us over a tweet, bro. You
show
mad?
Everyone who you really are. Like, if I think you've wronged me, I'm going to show you who I am. I'm someone who respects justice. They're gonna screw with.
I'm gonna stick up for myself.
Yeah. I understand everybody's responses here because I'm serious. There are so many companies that send these kinds of letters that you made me mad, you offended me, you hurt my feelings, and you've got law firms and lawyers or inside counsel that will send this kind of thing, retract your tweet, and a lot of the time it's going to be nothing. I think this one's more than that.
And then some of the times it's going to be Triller filing 2 lawsuits against H3, and then one of their owners just suing him personally too. So it can all just be a giant shit show on the internet.
Oh, that's a fun one.
Has anybody noticed on Twitter? I don't even want to read the tweets because I don't want to give it more traffic to these bots. Has anyone noticed Elon Musk bots on their Twitter feeds?
Oh yeah,
I get a lot of I get a lot of crypto. Present company excluded.
I was going to say,
I reference NFTs and things in the video game space. I get a lot of crypto bots flying in.
Huh. I
Yeah,
so
well,
far have
at least
not.
at least you're just getting the crypto bots and not the crypto thoughts. That's a whole different level.
There's a lot of scams. A lot of people do the fake Elon accounts or any famous billionaire, and they say, I'm giving away Bitcoin. Come here and watch this video, and they just rip people. I know so many people contact me and say this one's off, and they ask if I can help them. Obviously,
this is sort of different. It's a legit account, and it's tweeting a screenshot of a fake Elon Musk account with certain words, and it says search the following words, and then it turns out it's a type of product. So it's interesting marketing campaign.
I get them on my comment section where I get bots pretending to be replying to comments. So when they reply to comments, they don't get swooped into the filter on YouTube. And going through and constantly updating the blocked words is annoying, and it's always like some random WhatsApp number, and I'm like, this is why check marks matter. It's like, no, it's me, people. But I've started seeing fake accounts of me on Twitter more and more lately.
But that's how you know you're successful.
Just creepy.
That's how you know you're successful, is you've got bots that are botting you, you know?
Oh, Andrew, LegalBytes said, we noticed an influx of Russian sex bots into the chat once.
I know nothing about it at all.
No, but I said
Andrew assumed he was being blamed for something. First assumption. I love that. I love that's where you went with that, Andrew.
Okay, good. So we got the we were consensus on the Odyssey Rumble spat.
Well, what about the consensus on Rumble going public? What's everyone's thoughts on this?
It's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, there's reasons why you can go public that don't have to be completely bad.
But look, I know Barnes's take on it. We interviewed Chris the other day. Barnes's take is that it's good because if they make it their pillar of pitch, their corporate raison d'etre, it'll be shareholder fraud if they change it and then go against their protection of free speech. And you know, Barnes is really making the point, and I think he's making the point so the public understands if they ever change their objective or their mission statement. The problem is to the extent that shareholders control the company, there's nothing anybody can do about it. So it's going to be a question of ensuring that Rumble or Rumble interests, through the individual with the vision, retains controlling shareholding, which I think is going to be the case. But Chris is not going to live forever. Chris might have a change of heart. We'll see.
Chris could get fired by his own board when he goes public.
Exactly.
Well, and you don't know exactly what's coming down the social governance pipeline. You know, certainly they're rattling the saber at the SEC and elsewhere that they're going to potentially start invoking regulations. We don't know that, but I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. When you ask the question of, is that a bad thing to go public? Public companies and funds and that kind of thing, I think is generally good. You have significantly more security, potential ways to fund in terms of crisis or if there's any issues there. But I can't say anything about Rumble. I don't know much about them. I don't know much about their process. Public companies in general, though, I got no problem with. And certainly you can see successful actions from shareholders or boards or whatever, even though we see so much more evidence of dysfunction because that's what makes the news. It's definitely not every public company.
Success is not sexy in the corporate world.
What's the headline? Corporate board super happy with each other, has great Christmas party. Like,
board thrilled, profits up, and then you'll get some tweets about, capitalism. It's the way the world works. It's all good.
I guess the worry is this, because I'm going to speak, and I'm kind of uncertain. And I think it rolls from the fact that you had locals, and there are some people who are kind of criticizing Rubin, saying, hey, you built this independent platform that was never going to go under anybody and was going to be forever independent, always creator, da-da-da-da. I'm not looking to ever sell this company and all that. Meanwhile, he had been negotiating for like almost a year with Rumble. And a lot of people, it makes them nervous. And I understand that. And then 2 weeks later,
the locals combo to Rumble is more of the concern than the Rumble to going public. It was the locals to Rumble that caused a lot of this initial discourse. And then go ahead. And then 2 weeks later.
Exactly. It's like, because they just feel like, wait a minute here. We're suddenly all these fast moves that are behind the scenes. I think that made people feel genuinely uncomfortable. It makes me feel a little uncomfortable. It's like,
if you allow me to play village idiot here for a second, and maybe you've already gone over this, but okay, so Rumble's a video platform, right?
Yes.
What is Locals?
Locals is a Patreon.
Okay.
Funding. It's platform. Like a cross between Facebook and Patreon.
It's
Okay.
it's Facebook behind a paywall, and now it's part of Rumble. It was not a buyout or a sellout. It was just a merger between the shareholders of Rumble and the shareholders of Locals, who became shareholders in Rumble, and now.
Okay, but nothing says the merger. Who won that? That's Rumble. Rumble's the new controller.
Rumble's the acquirer.
Yeah, Rumble control. Rumble is the controlling entity.
Okay,
Yes.
Right.
okay.
Good for everyone that was a shareholder in Locals when they merged with Rumble. Now that Rumble's going public with.
Good to be acquired if you got an equity stake. Generally speaking.
Yep.
Mhm. And you can't help but wonder if Dave Rubin and them knew that this going public part was here too. It's hard to not consider that.
It is going to be a question of optics and communications and whether or not people feel that material information was withheld while certain representations were being made. Okay, but that feelings aside, the question is going to be whether or not it's good for Rumble long term. I think it is going to be good for Rumble long term. Forget about the mission statement. Companies can change and decide that Alex Jones is no longer welcome. But I genuinely think that there will be a turn of the tide in public sentiment, and it will be profitable to actually respect.
I want to push on that a little bit and say it's not a matter of whether it's good for Rumble, it's whether it's good for the creators. And that's, I think, the bottom line is really they're supposedly about creators. And when you consider Locals is built on the premise that the creators are the whole reason Locals existed, they got a piece of whatever creators did. It's creators' content. It's all about the creators. As soon as you swing to the public side, we now have shareholders. So who is the boss?
Here's my flip on that, Eric, because when we talked to Chris, I asked him, I don't know if my questions were too pointed or not. Hopefully he wasn't super pissed at me, but one of the things I appreciated that he said is they are working on a marketplace where advertisers can opt into particular creators. So if you have a creator that a company doesn't want to be advertised on, then you can opt into that creator, and creators can opt out of certain advertisers. So you're not going to have the thing you saw with YouTube where the advertisers are pressuring the platform saying, hey, you give us no control over where ads show up. And we just saw this play out on Twitter with Ryan Kavanaugh, who's suing H3, seeing a Domino's ad pop up when he's watching H3 on YouTube, being like, Domino's, why are you supporting this creator? Well, the Domino's ad's placed there, Kavanaugh, because you obviously eat Domino's, and that's an ad targeted at you, not targeted at the content that you're watching. But then tweeting out at Domino's, why are you supporting this creator, Ethan Klein, with this ad that pops up? Well, Domino's doesn't put that ad there. YouTube's algorithms put that ad there because Kavanaugh clearly does nothing but eat pizza. That's hyperbole, Ryan Kavanaugh. Do not drag me into this lawsuit.
Opinion.
It is totally my opinion. But the thing that I appreciated that Chris was saying is that the advertisers have a little control over that with who they advertise on. So if you don't want your advertisement to show up on like a Trump Jr. video, you can opt out of that creator, and the creators have the same. So if somebody doesn't want a Black Rifle coffee ad or whatever, they can say, don't advertise this on my shit. So you're not going to get that advertiser push against creators. And if you get a shareholder push against creators, then it'll be really interesting if a bunch of shareholders hate who's the most polarizing person on Rumble. Is it Alex Jones?
Well, probably. But you also have Stefan Molyneux and there's some other.
No idea.
Yeah, this is the discussion I had with Chris. I mean, Alex Jones I think is an artificial litmus test. I don't think he actually says anything that's all that crazy. I think
not anymore.
Not anymore. And even with the stuff that got him in trouble, Sandy Hook, other people have said much worse things. No sanctions on YouTube, but Stefan Molyneux is a good example. These, the race theorists. Who's the other one? Eric.
Fuentes? Is Fuentes on there?
Fuentes? I don't know if he's on there. I'd be curious to look. And the other one there, Richard Spence.
Is Richard Spencer on there? I don't know.
But those are the examples. Like I say,
race realists, I think, is really dancing on the edge.
That is the what should
I don't
be
even
the
want to say
reflexive
that. Probably
examples.
going to slam me on this video just for mention it.
It won't. But like I said, Chris should have these concrete examples, not just of the shock jocks, but of the ones that are actually morally questionable from some people's perspectives, to say, look, this is what I tolerate on the platform, even if I don't like them. Alex Jones, I think, is the easy, cheap example. It needs concrete ones so that people can see, yeah, you may not like the stuff that's there. You might think it's medical misinformation, but people can have the discussion about the most important things of our time.
David Icke, I think, is another one. I don't know if
that's 100% true. He really doesn't. Alex Jones, the media would always paint it far worse than it was, but he doesn't say anything remotely close to as bad as some of the other people you mentioned. They say things that are genuinely offensive to various groups. Alex Jones says things that are crazy all the time. Unfortunately,
he's offensive to frogs. Damn it! He's offensive to frogs. The frogs are offended.
No, only transitioning frogs. Only transitioning frogs.
He says things that are true in a crazy way, so that they get because the whole thing about the gay frogs. I've had the discussion with my wife. She's a scientist for anybody who doesn't know, but the element of truth in terms of I forget if it was sterility or changing the way they reproduce to the point of not reproducing,
making the way they reproduce.
Radio waves, controlling your brain. Well, the issue about your cell phone being in your room and the vibrations that it sends off may not control your behavior, but it might interrupt your sleep pattern. So is that mind control? That's just a question of semantics. Jones, I mean, we had him on for 2.5 hours. It's hyperbole, but the dude knows some stuff that most people don't know, probably because he spends all day reading. It's
everybody should have an Alex Jones was right jar right on their desk. Mine's overflowing at the moment because he's been on fire lately.
I can't pretend to have heard him,
too, but it wouldn't be about frogs. It would be.
I can't pretend to have listened to him. I will say, in terms of your marketing question, right? Like, in terms of this company going public, in general, I would offer that brand differentiation is the key. There's really not a lot of money, shareholder value, ROI in becoming baby YouTube that's worse with a smaller audience. That doesn't mean they can't make that decision. That doesn't mean the shareholders can't be idiots or the board or the management. But in general, if you're going to go public and you're going to fight the big dogs as a video platform, you're going to want to differentiate your brand. So there's going to be value in that. Maybe the shareholders decide it's a different way of differentiating other than, whatever it is, free minds, battle of ideas, whatever they go with as their trademark slogan at this point. But in general, even as a public company, even with public money, even with a broad base of shareholder support, the return on investment lives in not being YouTube.
That's that's a hot button person right there.
I have no idea who that is.
Is he a white supremacist?
Careful the words. Yeah.
Sorry.
He's a quote race realist. He's very, very much into the Japanese.
Hold on, I missed the name. Who was it? Bring the name up again.
Jared Taylor.
Okay.
And this is why I cover pop culture.
You and me both. I got nothing.
Yeah, I don't know this person either.
Good. I mean, it's not necessarily. It's like if you don't know him, that's probably a couple.
Did he have discussions with Stéphane Molyneux once upon a time on
and Richard
YouTube?
Spencer? He's actually one of the founders of the alt-right. So
well, anyhow,
so this platform's basic premise right now is open to all comers, battle of ideas kind of stuff.
Yeah, it sort of became the right wing platform with Bongino joining, and I forget the congressman who joined.
Nunes. The thing is, they call it the right wing platform, but then they turn people like Tulsi Gabbard into right wingers. So they say Tulsi Gabbard's there, Russell Brand is there.
The problem is that when you say it's a free speech platform, that on social media, free speech has somehow been aligned right, even though it's just a constitutional right that
because they're banning
it is not.
I can vouch for that
and shouldn't be polarized. And
right.
So Rumble says they are a politics neutral platform. But I think that because YouTube and Twitter are arguably not politics neutral platforms, you end up with those on the right who feel slighted by the other platforms going over to one platform, and then it leans heavily right. And then everyone who might not be that way that's over there gets pushed over the line, and they're like, you're on the right too. And you're like, what just happened?
Well, and also what happens
is a real thing, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, there's also the issue too that you build a new platform, who's going to come flooding in? Everybody who got banned from the other platforms.
Right.
The banished.
Yeah, that was just Brian Stelter was just complaining about the echo chamber, which is obviously ironic given the state of the rest of the media. But it's funny because he's one of those people who spent the last 5 years saying, if you don't like it, build your own platform. Okay, we'll build our own platform. Guys, what are you doing? You can't have your own platform. You're creating an echo chamber. It's like, okay, well, what do you think's going to happen? You're banning everybody that's aligned on a particular side of the aisle. They're going to funnel into whatever's available to them. If it's a free speech platform, that's what it's going to be. And then they go and criticize it for being an echo chamber or for being right wing. It is exactly what you made it into.
They complain to Amazon Web Services, and then Amazon Web Services tries to them. But they did say, Rumble did say it was creating its own infrastructure. And I think there were allusions to, this is my interpretation, there were allusions to perhaps a independent payment processor as well. But right now, one of the unique things with Rumble, and I'm not pro or con, but one of the unique things with Rumble and with locals is that the payments do get processed directly to the creator. So if the creator is problematic and Stripe shuts you down, then Stripe is shutting you down, but the money is not being processed through the companies and then paying you out net 30 or whatever it is.
Removing
that is a problem, by the way.
possible leaving the infrastructure. No, I find that very interesting. Certainly, because I've gotten guilt by association. This is, this is the third year of my channel, but I'm still getting used to all this stuff. I've told this story before, I think, but when I started appearing with Nick, certainly, but with Colin Moriarty, I started getting messages all over the place and put into buckets and banned from forums and on block lists. And I'm like, I have to take a step back and be like, I haven't changed anything that I've said. I haven't changed from Reasonable Minds Can Differ. I haven't done anything like that. And I've talked to people. I say, I'm on Nick's stream. I appear in legal videos. I don't know if you know this. They don't agree on a lot of stuff. The point is to get the message out and to talk to folks about things.
Yeah.
And I go out on
shocking.
Twitter. I go out on Twitter with Voltaire. I talk about, hey, I will defend your right to say stuff that I absolutely abhor, and then I get called all the big guns. I get called all the big words. It's like how did we arrive at that place? And navigating YouTube is a part of that story. Navigating Twitter, seeing what happens here with these different platforms is exactly right. Though you do have that banished. Go over there. It becomes certain folks view it in a certain way, and then everybody that will appear on that platform are viewed in a certain way. Now I'm still going to broaden out from YouTube because there's just too many eggs in that basket. I'm going to go on whatever, but unfortunately, you're in this space, you're content creating, you're making videos, you're streaming, you're doing law commentary, whatever it is, you have to at least be cognizant of the way these kinds of things are viewed. And that's chilling in and of itself. I mean, we can talk about cancellation, and we can say it's true, it's false, it's bad, it's good, whatever you want. There's just an overall patina of watch what you say. Those are eggshells on the ground everywhere for everything. And even if you don't say anything bad, somebody will probably leave me a comment that says, "Oh, do you know who Eric once had on his show?" This is the kind of thing that happens.
I know I was doing good, and you showed up, buddy. I was doing good, and now it's over.
That's right.
Hold on, Eric.
Crypto.
Did I miss the yellow?
Oh,
yes.
That was
within
4
4
minutes
minutes.
in.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I'll say one thing though. The stream I did last night with Inner City Press got demonetized, but got remonetized after manual review. So I was fortunate about that. Eric, your notifications seem to be turned off on your text messages. Could you bring up while we're plugging locals?
Oh, we're plugging things now. Has the grift?
Wait.
Are
we grifting now?
No, Joe's not here yet, guys.
I mean, if we're gonna do it, let's do a round table.
I want to grift my old hair because I was going through.
Oh my yes.
On locals where we do the art of the day, and whenever I've said I forget to post art of the day so often, I said now I'm going to penalize myself by going back to old photos. Look at, but it's making me depressed to see the way the world used to be. That's me and my brother.
That's a crime against humanity.
Dude, I'm going back.
Wow.
To it. Instead of blonde, it's going to be gray.
Corduroys?
I think it's impressive.
Those are corduroys, Emily.
I've never had that.
The 90s were so great.
Oh, this was 99 2000. That's my brother. We bought push scooters and went around Paris and Bruges. I had no idea Bruges was the most romantic city in the world, but those were the days.
Go with your brother. That's
no,
awesome.
locals is Rick. You got to get on locals. It is fantastic. The locals payment comes directly through Stripe to the creator, but Rumble still goes through Rumble. But they're gonna tweak that out. You're gonna own your content on Rumble as well. So,
while we're on the grift, good idea.
Just got mine up.
America's Untold Stories. Let's talk about Alec Baldwin. Episode 8 is coming up tonight, guys.
All about Alec Baldwin forever. I cannot stop.
Yeah, I'm gonna be.
Did you guys see those posts on Twitter? I think they're on Facebook or Instagram. That were the staff posts that Alec put up from.
The letter.
Supposedly the Rust crew.
Oh, the letter with the 20 people out of 100 and some odd people who said
the
language conditions were great. I'm craft services.
Exactly. I don't like to
Please hire me again.
The 20 people who they're not dead. Just to be.
I think they referenced like 5 times the producers didn't put us up to this. Like there's 5 different sentences. Like just so you know, The producers are definitely not standing just off screen.
Well, you know the rule. You stand
That's when
behind
you're like
Alex
blink
Baldwin.
twice if you're
not
under
in front of him.
duress.
No, always stand behind Alex Baldwin, okay?
I think somebody commented that on my Alex Baldwin video. I stand behind Alec. Because I
And
won't
if
stand
you
in front of him.
say his name 3 times backwards, does that summon the spirit that fired the gun?
I think it'll summon another Instagram post. The thing about it is, right?
Like an Instagram stories rant by his wife is what it'll summon.
Yeah, hilarious.
Last night.
I saw that.
She terrifies. That woman terrifies me.
Well, you know what? That's why he has PTSD, guys, because he's reserved.
Paparazzi too, apparently.
That's facts.
It's such a bad move because I do think just the circumstances can give you a level of sympathy if you duck your head and you never think about the man himself. And then he goes out with that interview. He goes out on the side of the road before that. He goes out with these posts. And I had to do a video because I'm looking at it going like, wow, you blamed everybody else. Everyone else. You might have missed somebody on craft services, but you blamed everyone.
Starting out with the victim. That was the first blame.
And then he calls.
That's what blew my mind. That's when I decided to make a video.
That's
right? I'm watching this. I go, you're starting out with like 2 double emphases. She directed me. I'm like, oh, I see where you're going, Alec.
Yeah. Well, he said, I want to make sure I'm clear. I'm not the victim. There's 2 victims here. 15 minutes later, he says, I wouldn't say I'm a victim, but this is the worst thing that ever happened to me, and talks about for 5 minutes how it's the worst thing that's ever happened to him.
And then the video is like, and people are looking at me and they're using their cell phones to take a picture of me. It's like, yeah, okay.
Let me define victim for you.
Out. He's a rage machine. Every time he's on camera, he just flips out on journalists for the most part. He's a rage. Speaking of rage machine,
remind me what a dick he was, though. I had kind of forgotten because I don't
pay
much attention to him, and I'm like, oh, that's right, I hate you.
That's the knee-jerk reaction. It's like you just feel gross.
Yep.
Watching that, and it's like I had kind of sympathy. It's like, oh, that sounds like it would really suck. Like if it happened to me, Jesus, that would be terrible. Regardless of whether I was at fault or it was reckless or anything else, just the actual reality of the circumstance. I think people can get behind and be like, good God, that's horrible. Yeah. And then you hear him talk and you're like, forget it, man.
No. What stupid question you just asked.
Do you feel guilt?
But hold on. By show of hands, who here thinks that he's going to get charged for something?
Hearing what the sheriff said, I think so.
I don't think so.
Okay, so
he's right.
I hope so. I don't
know.
No.
Criminally?
If you're
talking about criminally.
Criminally. Is he going to face criminal charges? I'm saying yes.
I say no.
I think after the interview, it's materially more likely. Is the phrase?
Yes,
I
more likely, but I don't think it's
more likely. Still don't think it gets.
I will vote no.
Especially, I mean, the sheriff said guns don't just go off. Law enforcement is not happy with the way he's
they're pissed.
acting as if
how in the hell do you get that interview before
the sheriff doesn't actually do it though? The DA has to do it. She's Soros back.
Yeah. But if officials in that area are taking offense and taking issue with what
look who interviewed him, by the way. Look who interviewed him. That was a signal. That was saying I'm with the Clintons. No, it's saying I'm with the Clintons, you dumbasses. You come after me, we're coming after you. That's the bottom line.
Maybe all this time, Alec Baldwin has been the Clintons' primary executioner. We just didn't know.
I wouldn't go that far, but you probably have the film. I wouldn't put it past you. But
what I skip in my videos, the last 5 minutes of that, as you may well know, is all kind of, oh, he's such a family man, and this is so harmful.
Oh, yes.
There's 6 full minutes, which is like what you negotiate for when you give the interview, which is like, this is how you're going to finish this. But God. It was
the thing that he said, if I felt like I was guilty, I would take my own life.
Yeah.
To me, just read as him saying, if you all keep telling me I'm guilty, you all are responsible. If something happens to me,
I'm going to kill myself.
A 13-year-old. But if you break up with me, then I'm going to. It was boggling.
Well, and
the
thing that
narcissism
got
there
me
is
the
we will have
most.
lost a gift, right? You will have lost Alec Baldwin if you continue down this path. I got nothing.
6 children.
The thing that really sort of got me the most was I was sort of paying attention to when he was getting emotional and the things that he was talking about when he was getting emotional. Yep. The moment that he was talking about Helena's kids and the fact that now they will be growing up without a mother, not a single tear, not a single waver of his voice, absolutely nothing. But talking about, oh, the crew, they work so hard.
Anthony
they
Hopkins,
work so
Meryl
hard
Streep.
on the set. So many tears.
I didn't want to be too hard on
somebody is when there were tears.
I'm just going to put a shout out because growing up when I did, The Getaway, as a young man with Kim Basinger, absolutely fantastic movie. I couldn't care less about Alec Baldwin being in it.
Alec Baldwin's been in a bunch of
that movie because that's the only Alec Baldwin movie I love, and it has nothing to do with him. It has to do with being an 80s baby and Kim Basinger being nude in it.
He's the narrator of one of my favorite video games. I mean, he's done some good work.
He's a talented person.
Yeah, he has. He
Oh,
has.
World at War.
But for me, his dramatics during the, I found it to be dramatics. I don't know if anyone else would agree with me, but I found his emotional display to be not particularly convincing.
You mean it's weird when it turns on like a switch and then he goes down like this? And
yes. Yeah.
Well, no,
like, let me gather
me
my tears for a second here.
My feeling is that some of those tears were genuine, but he's not mourning the death of Helena Hutchins. He's mourning the death of his career. He's saying, I was once in a movie with Alec, with Tony. What's his last name? Tony Hopkins. He was so close. He didn't even call him Anthony. I was in a movie with Tony. With Meryl Streep. Now I'm on the low budget Western and with these people who are walking off the set. I used to be a god, and now this is. He was mourning the death of his career.
Remember, he learned to love
this movie made me love filmmaking again.
Oh, by the way, did you notice? And I think the body panel picked up on the look of sneer, anger in his face throughout the interview. But when he said that, this made me love movie, and they showed him from the side, he looked angry. He didn't look like he believed that whatsoever. But the thing that got me, he's talking about kids that he has
orphaned,
and then he goes, I've got 6 kids. We're doing very well. I mean, that's like, there's an old expression in the house of a hung man, don't ask where you hang the fish. I don't know who's going to know that. My grandmother used to tell me that. That's like saying, I just destroyed these kids' lives. Really weird. But my kids we're doing fine. We're doing very well. I mean,
you can't.
No one asked Alec.
No, I thought the angriest he was responding to George Clooney. When he gives
well,
good for you. I was like, Jesus.
You know why? You know why, right? Because Clooney's a bigger star. Alec was a bigger star than Clooney, and Clooney has completely surpassed him. Their careers have kind of flipped because Clooney was in television and things like that, right when Alex was doing Hunt for Red October and giant movies, and now Clooney is a far bigger A-lister. So I think that's a personal, and
I think
good for them.
Real legitimate accent. I mean, that's just my impression.
A lot of actors, depending on
that's a lower.
Are also just genuine pros with that stuff too. So they take issue with what he did because pretty much every actor that's trained with Taron Butler, who's a competitive shooter who trains movie stars on how to shoot, like Will Smith, Keanu Reeves. These guys, if you've seen them behind the scenes, they are genuine experts with firearms. They really learn from the best in the world, and most of the comments have come from people like that who have a reputation for being experts in that area. It's like Will Smith is a perfect example. I don't know if he made comments about Alec, but he's done videos where he specifically talks about firearms.
The clip of him doing firearm safety went kind of viral after this.
Yeah.
Will Smith. Yeah. He can strip a weapon. And
anybody who works with Taron Butler, all those guys are.
A lot of this though is the attitude towards Second Amendment and guns in general. Baldwin is noteworthy of hating guns. He's been a gun grabber forever. And I think that there's a contempt to the guns. Like he doesn't even care. He's only going to do it
with weapons. Don't
he
be
has no idea how they work either, which is evident by the way he explained what happened.
Oh, obviously.
And by calling things a clip.
Well, you want to talk about stupidity there, though. That section is about, I've been in movies for 40 years. I've fired hundreds of weapons, thousands of bullets. It's like, you don't, those aren't the statements that you want when we're going to talk about whether you were reasonable.
Correct.
Right.
What are you doing?
Right.
It makes it more likely that it's criminal negligence because you knew
what you were doing.
Or at least you should have.
Well, we
he
need to
talks
see
about the
gun.
armorers, right? He says, well, and a bunch of armorers, these guys would insist on showing me the empty. It's like, oh, well, does it strike you that there was a better way to clear the gun then? I mean, this happens to you. You know what the other procedure looks like.
So the way he explained it, the entire thing will come down to the gun. If the gun is defective in some way, so there's a safety catch, for instance, you can't, on a 45 long Colt like that, you can't pull back the hammer and just release it without pulling the trigger. It would catch. The hammer wouldn't move forward, right? So unless it was defective, unless it was removed intentionally so it's more easy to manipulate on screen, then what he said is not physically possible.
Right.
Well, hang on. We got somebody involved with the production.
That's what makes it so important is because he made all these admissions while the police still have the weapon and while they can still test all these things before they've made a determination. So they can now check his story against the actual weapon because they still have it, which is the critical error here in making these admissions and explaining these things while the investigation is still open. Not to say that you reopen an investigation, but that's exactly why, because they can check it and determine that very easily. Sorry.
I don't want to imply that anybody would lie in these circumstances, but in general, as a legal note, you want to wait for the investigation because you want to know what exactly they found. Before you start talking to George Stephanopoulos on national television.
Because otherwise you're just giving them another avenue to go down and say like, actually, maybe we actually didn't really think about this angle. So let's take a look and see what we can find.
And if you're his lawyer and he does the interview against your advice, do you quit?
Oh yeah, 100%. Because it'll only be a matter of time before he blames negative consequences on your poor representation of him.
Yeah.
Once that's done, those clients are liabilities.
I would hate to
It's a
be an
wrap.
attorney.
Well, he painted one narrative. There is nothing else that can be said. He said this is the facts, and now he said he didn't pull the trigger. He said that it's all out there.
But you know what the thing is? His
no questions.
If his lie, or if the true story, how it discharges that he was already depressing the trigger, which is why the hammer never locked in any place. He never pulled the trigger. So in his mind, it's going to be true. But in fact, he was always pulling the trigger.
So he claimed his finger was outside the trigger guard.
Well, yeah, but except
he did say that.
He said that but when he was given the visual to George, his finger was quite clearly curled inside. So I mean, whether or not you make
another pro tip for screenshot purposes: don't make gun fingers on national television. Okay?
tell that to Binger.
Formal legal advice.
Oh my God.
Now, if we're betting on whether or not Binger ever gets charged for pointing a weapon at the jury, they're all saying no. But
Emily and I know. Miss Wisco was on my channel, and Emily was there with me. And we brought it up to her. We wanted to know what the jury thought when he did that, and she actually said she sounded like she was like I don't want to defend him in some way or whatever, but it wasn't exactly what she said. But she said that from her view, he actually was not pointing it at the jury. It was pointed kind of more towards the TV. Granted, not at the ground. Anywhere but the ground is unsafe, but technically not at the jury. So that information
still simping for Binger.
That information conflicts with my preconceived notions and dislike for Binger. Therefore, I shall disregard it and choose to believe that he pointed at the jury. That's how confirmation bias works.
She was very gracious with me. I would like to correct the facts on that because I was sitting in the courtroom and it was pointed in the direction of the jury, but off to the side. So it wasn't as if he was targeting jurors like in Duck Hunt. It's still ill-advised.
I'm pretending I didn't hear the correction. I'm going with David. I just
David,
exactly who I think he is. So
David, I have to correct you.
The Kim Powder thing, and in that case, they're talking about hollow point ammunition. And the only thing I responded to him, I said, "Don't tell Binger, he'll lose it. If he knows there's exploding super nuclear hollow point ammunition, he might lose it."
David, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say that you are representing it as if you were Binger.
Well, pointing it.
That's exactly how he represented Kyle footage.
That's true. Good point, Eric.
I would, anyhow.
I'm actually heartened to hear that he didn't point it directly at the jury. For the record, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so on to other fun ones.
I will just say that normally most of us wouldn't believe a prosecutor would do that, but for Binger's appalling behavior earlier in that trial. Everyone would have given him the benefit of the doubt, going, well, we can't see where the jury is. Can't really see the angles. But he had done so much stupid, unethical shit that everybody's like, oh no, from this dude, I believe it.
Well, and there were also enough misrepresentations about firearms in general that made it seem like he knew absolutely nothing about firearms.
Well,
so why would he know?
That picture, right? I mean,
the whole point is, I'll accept. Fine, it wasn't directly at the jury, but the whole issue about the reckless discharge charge against Kyle is that he didn't know what was behind. And Binger, even if he's pointing it a little off, doesn't know who's in the next room, doesn't know what happens if it does go off and go through a wall. By his own rationale, he's guilty of the exact same crime that he was prosecuting Rittenhouse for. But Darth, do you have information that you're disclosing or that you're going to publish soon?
Yes.
So I was going to say I haven't lost any followers in a couple days from talking about the Lubbock case with Chad Reed and Kyle Carruth. So I figured I would anger people again. I'm going to be doing so. I just created my locals. Everybody check it out. It's darthcrypto.locals.com. I'm going to be putting some of this content up on there. I have a ton of new information. but I'm starting to understand more of what was going on in that case. So I figured I would ask everybody what their thoughts are, because I'm kind of curious. Everybody was so adamant. They disagreed about whether they felt that case could be justifiable as self-defense or not. The fact that nobody in the media has looked into any of this is disconcerting, but also expected, obviously. So I kind of filled that void, and I'm learning a lot about the people involved. So Chad Reed, for instance, threatened to smash his ex-wife's face in front of her kids.
Before we do that, hold on. Let's get everybody's opinion right now. Justified or not? Because no, it'd be good just to get around and then
see if it changes.
You're providing
with this new
facts.
information.
Yeah.
Okay. Do it. Show of hands. Who thinks that he was justified?
I'm abstaining for lack of
No,
information.
I'm going to say I think legally justified, morally reprehensible because it was avoidable to some extent. But like I said it from the beginning. If I show up with on my property and I say leave and I have a weapon and the guy then comes up and starts chest bumping me, tries to take the gun from me, says I'm going to take that from you and you better use it, mother effer, because I'm going to take it from you and use it on you, then throws me off the porch. I'm not relying on the fact that in that 1/1000th of a second he wasn't fully advancing. I don't think he's going to get charged. I should say it that way. I don't think
he's not getting charged.
So there's a couple reasons why. I have sources in the area who said there's not a single person who lives there that would convict him. So it would be absolutely pointless to charge him. Everybody who lives there, even if they think it was probably avoidable, wouldn't convict based on that because they could put themselves in the same situation.
Oh, hey guys, we got to interrupt. Darth, I hate to do it to you, but we have a very short window here, and
no, I can go all day. Seriously, I can go all day. I'm done for the day here.
Oh, are you? Okay, because we definitely want to hear about Maxwell House.
All right. What do you,
Darth? Hold on.
Yeah, I'll finish explaining at least the new stuff I found out. So, a lot of the narratives and why everybody was so adamant about taking their position on this. I was very vocally defending Kyle Carruth and saying that in that situation, you're talking about 589 milliseconds from the time the gun was released to when he shot. All those details don't really address what most people's contention was, which people were claiming this. Well, a lot of people had come up with this theory that he was there to pick up his son by court order and the judge ordered it and that was the pickup spot. So according to the divorce records, which apparently I alone have obtained, that's not true. The handoff for child transition was always at both of their residences. The first Friday of the month, which is when this occurred, November 5th, was a school day. So he technically has the kid at 3:15, unless it's not a normal school period. I think in Texas, schools are 100% open, so he would have had the kid at 3:15. So he was late, right? The mother was late to hand over the kid. People made a whole big deal out of that.
Joe, you got to mute yourself when you're not talking.
Yeah.
Not that fire hydrant or whatever.
No, lots of New York atmosphere.
There's too much crime. Too much crime.
So a couple of the details that have changed, right? So from what I've learned, there's really no issue with custody other than her being a little bit late. According to the divorce proceedings and the divorce decree, the proper process as outlined by the judge is to bring it to family court if there's a disagreement, and he'll figure out what sort of dispensation there should be. So that's a non-issue. What I've learned that's more relevant, though, is everybody in the area is very close. I have sources who have confirmed this, that Chad Reed is known as a very aggressive and violent person. He's 6'2", 6'3", 225 pounds. He has a history. He had beaten his ex-wife, not Christina, who was in the video. So Emily, the wife before that. One of the police reports I have, he had threatened to smash her face in front of their kids. He grabbed her by the hair, threw her 63-year-old mother onto the concrete ground outside his house. And the craziest thing is one of the biggest arguments people like me have said, if you're trespassing while deadly force may not be justified, that certainly changes the calculus. And people said, oh, well, it's not really trespassing and he knows him. When he threw his 63-year-old mother-in-law's face into the driveway, he said, you're trespassing. Get out of my home. So I think that's particularly relevant too, how that plays into the whole thing. So knowing his history, knowing the fact that in addition to all of this, Kyle Carruth's ex-wife, who is an Abbott-appointed judge, presided over some of Chad Reed's criminal cases. They are more than familiar with his history as a violent person. So one of the arguments that I heard made by many people, it was unjustified to go inside to obtain a weapon. There was no need to get a gun to escalate the situation. If somebody's on your property and they say, I'm not going to leave, what the F are you going to do about it? Which is exactly what he said on camera. Kyle Karrath said, leave. And he said, I'm not leaving. What the F are you going to do about it? Kyle went inside and got the gun. People's primary contention was he escalated the situation by getting the gun. Learning his history.
Darth, let me just stop you there. But not just escalated. That's the argument for provocation, which then precludes him from using self-defense. So it wasn't just
but provocation would have to be, for that to be the case, to preclude you from using an affirmative defense, it would have to be in violation of the law. And he didn't threaten anybody with the gun. He didn't point the gun at anybody, didn't assault anybody with it. He was standing there with the gun. And the law in Texas is actually, there's a single line about presenting a firearm. The only time it's actually acceptable is if you're using it to create the general sense that it's there if necessary. So you can't point it, you can't threaten, anything like that. So he was within the bounds of the law, but everybody was speaking more to how it was unreasonable to do it in the first place. Knowing his history, knowing the relationship between these people, and seeing the way Christina, the ex-wife, had backed up as Chad was approaching her, I think there should be some people, at the very least, who are swayed by the new information, because knowing the relationship between them, I think it's entirely justifiable that he went in and felt that he needed a firearm. Guy's 6'2", 230 pounds. He refuses to leave the property. In Texas, you're allowed to use force if someone's trespassing. You can't use deadly force, but you can use force.
Well, you can, but only under
guy. You're not going to throw this gigantic, violent man off of your property with force, unless you have backup.
Well,
so,
and Branca's position was that based on what he sees, he thinks it's unjustified. But had Chad been making the slightest move forward, then it immediately becomes justified. Which is, I mean, it's a. I'm not saying a lawyer's hedge, but it's a lawyer's hedge. I mean, Branca's basically saying, if I see the guy's knee looking forward in the video, therefore, even by Branca's explanation, he should then conclude it was justified. Yeah. But I mean, if you're going down to like that, literally 1/10 of a second when he throws him in that still shot, he's not moving. Nobody's moving in a still shot. So,
that was the timing thing. It was 589 milliseconds from the time he released the gun. And Branca's contention was that in that amount of time, you can reprocess and decide there's enough space.
Yeah, the window for the self-defense is closed.
Exactly.
Yeah, he absolutely could have.
I don't like the window.
I don't even understand that. 5/10 of a second, half a second, that's plenty of time to recalibrate. And in 5/10 of a second, you make thousands of decisions every day in 5/10 of a second. Right now, I'm deciding whether I want to walk into this thing or not. When I glance up, I'm like, oh, that took me like 2/10 of a second. I don't understand this whole contention.
There's a hole in that logic, Joe.
So I'm going to share my hot take that I put on Twitter was, I don't care if it was 5 minutes.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Was Joe being sarcastic or not? Right there?
No. Joe
he was being serious. I
serious.
think that's completely farcical, but okay. And also, I don't think that you've been in a situation like that, Joe. If you're making a statement like that.
I don't care if it was 5 minutes. When you look at the situation, and I did a video where I explained this, where if you just look at it from Kyle's perspective, he's sitting at home, minding his own business. Someone comes to his home. That person refuses to leave. Okay, next step. He goes and gets a weapon and says, leave. That person then runs into his habitation, which the front porch is considered under Texas law. And he says, leave again, right? He then gets physically assaulted. Still doesn't do anything. He then has the gun grabbed and he's told, I'm going to take your gun and kill you with it. And still doesn't do anything. And Chad Reed makes all these decisions, putting himself in that final place. And Kyle Karrath does none of those things. He's just
hold on. Emily.
My position, whether
Emily
or not
is
legally justified, I believe that he was right to do what he did, and I don't care if it was a 5-minute delay. If the law says he's not justified, it's a bad law. That's just my opinion outside of the legal analysis.
Emily, you're a prosecutor, so let's get the prosecution in on this. I think Emily was about to say something. What are your thoughts?
I was just going to say, in my early experience, I worked for judges, and the floor that my office happened to be in, my office was a converted courtroom with 10 other research attorneys. And we were on the family law floor in the Superior Courthouse, Stanley Mosque, where Britney Spears' cases, where the probate cases are and stuff for LA County, or for that area of LA County. And it was the only floor with armed guards because things escalated so quickly in family law matters and so unexpectedly and in such wild directions that we actually had someone grab their child out of court, run out onto the balcony and jump with their kid. So all of the doors and windows on that floor ended up being sealed. The ability to make rational thought in those circumstances is shut down in your frontal cortex. So when you then add the potential fight, that consideration all comes in. I'm not an expert in Texas law, but if I was looking at that as a prosecutor, I would be looking at the context that Jussie just brought up, saying, what does the person holding the gun know? And knowing all of that, the analysis then becomes different, because what matters is what they knew and what they perceived and what they thought based on what the standard is. So I could see a prosecutor saying, this is a very difficult thing to prosecute. It's a bad situation that never should have happened. But that is so many of the family law situations that become violent, which is why someone should have just called the police, but that's not what happened.
Well,
so
they did. They just hadn't gotten there soon.
Right.
No, but
They should have done it different isn't really the analysis. And that's the thing that frustrated me with the Rittenhouse case. People are like, he shouldn't have been there. It's like, okay, great. But he was. So we have to deal with what happened, not how we could have done it better. And I think people just forget our brains act in different ways when we're in fight, flight, and freeze, and getting into these kind of particularly with people that you know, and with family law stuff, you can escalate into that fight, flight, and freeze much faster based on history, possibly, than you do in just a random situation where you're still trying to figure out what's happening.
Yeah, can I ask you reaction to the case too? People who reacted to the case with such an emotional response are either the children of divorce, have been divorced, have had child custody issues. You can tell in a heartbeat the way certain people came at me. It's like, all right, you've obviously had a custody debate with your ex. It's pretty clear, so it's personal for you. I get that, but it's pretty obvious that that's.
I want to ask you all to consider. I want you all to consider something. Okay, if you're pro Second Amendment, which I am, I believe most of you probably are, don't you think that putting an onus on someone that when they have a gun trained on someone on another individual, that there should be an onus on them that if the person is not in a position that they can reach them and cannot be in a position to reach them until they take at least 2 steps, that there should be an onus on them that maybe once you have pulled the trigger, you actually pause and think, do I have to kill this guy? I don't know. That's just my take, because in an environment where I think that I want everyone to have guns to be able to defend themselves, I don't want them to have an itchy trigger finger and when they have a gun aimed at someone's chest. That's just my take on it.
But we're not
putting it in a question, Joe. Joe, I have one question for you. Have you ever had somebody who's 3 times the size of you, 10 feet away from you, who you know is a violent felon who's violently beaten women before?
No. I mean, have I ever been in the situation Kyle was in? No, I haven't.
But I'll tell you, no, Joe, and I say the only other thing is, Joe, if you attack someone who's holding a gun, like I'll quote Robert Barnes on this. You've basically sacrificed. You sacrificed a certain. If you've attacked someone with a gun, you have, and I mean attack. This is
froze up on me.
Who froze up?
You froze up on us.
You froze up on us.
No, you're the one freezing.
Yeah. So, but okay,
every one of you was moving except for Viva, who was talking. So, Viva, what were you saying, please?
Joe, I think you're the frozen one, man.
I know, but I saw everyone else moving except you. So.
Okay, all I'm saying, you're hypothetical. We don't need to go for that. He twice confronted and arguably assaulted the guy with the gun, saying, "Leave my property." And the argument is that, well, in that other second, and this is Bronca's argument, the window of opportunity had moved and closed. To say that happened in half a second is a very, very big stretch. But one major distinction as well. People are going to say, well, the fact that Kyle killed criminals, it was irrelevant that they were criminals. It was the knowledge of the individual of the criminal past that becomes relevant. So Kyle didn't know it, which is why none of it was relevant. If it turns out that Kyle Carruth,
it's very confusing that we have 2 Kyles.
It is. Yes, we'll call him Carruth.
But it worked out well for me because I took this Kyle's side, so I'm just the Kyle guy now. I don't know.
Rittenhouse didn't know the history of the people, but this Kyle does. Yeah. So that's a very, very important distinction.
I wasn't talking you. Whenever I mention a hypothetical, Viva, you frequently will say, "I'm not dealing with hypotheticals."
Yeah.
Okay. This was not a hypothetical. I was talking just a general policy that makes sense as far as law, and happens to be the law in Texas. So that makes it not hypothetical, but the actual scenario that we are all trying to assess here. And that is, are you in a zone of danger or not? And that zone of danger is constantly changing. And that's just the reality of the world. So you want to tell me that you want to cut him some slack because, as Emily was saying, that his brain is sort of locked in because everything that's happened is confusion. Okay. You want to say that's a mitigating factor in determining his capacity to assess the level of threat at that particular moment? Okay. That's fine. I can accept that. But to just say that, because of an incident that happened and not enter that into the calculus, I think that where we all want everyone to be able to be armed with a gun, I think that the first thing we should be saying is, let's make sure that people are actually, when you have a gun trained on someone, that we should have policies like Texas seems to have, that before you pull the trigger, you need to be in a zone of real danger.
An alternative rule?
I don't understand arguing that. Does any of you disagree with me philosophically?
Joe,
yeah,
I think the
absolutely. I do agree with you, Joe.
Much simpler rule. This is much
in the way you're
easier to follow.
analyzing this, it's completely wrong.
So
But,
this is a much easier rule to follow. Don't ever say the words, "I'm going to take your gun and kill you with it," and you will never be shot by that person.
That's extraneous. The same way, I don't want to give a hypothetical because otherwise I'm going to have Viva freak out on me. But you're telling me there's no difference if he flung him 2 feet away or 10 feet away, or if he was Superman and flung him 50 feet away, that once he picks up the gun and trains it on him, that he somehow has a right to shoot the guy.
That
doesn't make sense.
I love the train,
but whatever. I mean, I understand. I've never been in that situation. Hopefully, I never will be in that situation. Hopefully, none of us are ever in that situation. But we have to we're trying to figure out what the law is in this situation. And to me, based on the way Texas wrote it, you want to tell me that there's some sort of excuse because his brain is shot down in the moment, or there's shock and confusion? I don't know. Maybe Texas allows for that.
First of all, he will not get charged. But second thing is, I think
civil suit. There's going to be a civil suit, won't there be?
He'll lose that. He'll lose that too. As far as I'm concerned, he was in real danger at the time he shot him. And the other, now my personal view is, I would have call me the sissy left-wing Canadian. I would have gone into my house, locked the door, and if I heard anyone trying to break down that door, then it would have been double justifiable. I would not have come out with the gun. I would have gone in and locked the door.
Except, David, you're leaving your girlfriend out there who's already had a confrontation with him when you're hiding inside the house. I just want to point that little factor there.
That's not little. That's massive.
As he stepped forward, she stepped backwards. So it's pretty obvious what she felt.
Eric, you may have just changed my opinion on my retreat argument, because I had not thought of that, and that's a exquisitely legitimate point.
Well, I still want to hear about Maxwell.
Oh, yes.
I think we've frozen Joe. I think I was
going to say, Joe, get a good signal.
We should have jumped on the Maxwell.
What do you think? You think I have some superpower where I can tell where there's going to be a good signal? How do I know where there's I'm in downtown
where do you live?
New York.
Dude, you're making
Canadian.
I just walked out of the Southern District of New York.
Out in the middle of nowhere. There's no.
You're on 1G right now.
Yes.
Spin around in a circle and you'll see a Starbucks. Just go there.
All
right, man. So Joe, what's the
deal? Today, Annie Farmer took the stand. She's the 4th victim to testify. She's the only one to testify under her full real name. And before she took the stand, the judge gave instructions saying that the court is anticipating you're about to hear about sexual conduct engaged between the witness and the defendant, as well as Jeffrey Epstein. And you are all to be aware of the fact that none of this sexual contact was illegal, nor should it be used by the jury to assess the character of the defendant, but rather it's being offered for the purpose of you assessing the nature of the method that the defendant has acted with respect to other elements of this case. So, and this is the second witness who testified that we were given this instruction on. So the jury was given this instruction. The judge's not really talking to me, but if you look through the charging documents, so there are, I believe, there's 4 charges, and then there's 2 additional ones for perjury, which are not relevant in this particular action. And each of them, they lay it out. They'll say, charge number 1 with respect to victim 1, then with respect to victim 2, victim 3, victim 4, and then they'll go to charge number 2 with respect to victim 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., on and on. And to 2 of these victims now, both Kate and Annie Farmer, there's nothing that that the jury is allowed to convict her for. All they're left with is using the information they got from Kate and Annie to assess whether or not the conduct that Maxwell engaged in is convictable with respect to her conduct on number 1 and number 3, which are the pseudonym of Jane and Carolyn, which is a real first name, no last name given. So
Joe,
You want to hear? If you want to hear what Farmer testified about what happened, I can go through that as well.
Yes, yeah,
But
please.
Joe, before you do that, Joe, just one thing. Did you watch last night? You were there for a bit with
yeah, I watched most of
Matthew.
it.
Okay, and just so you know, and just so everybody out there knows, it was the first time I had Matthew on, and I knew people were saying get Joe in, but I don't like bringing in a guest when it hasn't been agreed upon with a first-time guest. I had the same issue with Emily, where people saying bring in Emily with Drew Hernandez, but sometimes a guest can feel ambushed if you spring another lawyer on them. So just so everybody knows why.
That. And he's a lawyer, which I did not realize until your show, and I thought you basically got a glorified stenographer to come in there. But he is a lawyer, and he's a very smart and very engaging guy. It was a great interview, and I actually felt guilty because I saw you were being harassed by the audience.
I
to
just
bring
want everybody
me in.
to know.
And
And it wasn't to be disrespectful to you, and it wasn't to be disrespectful to Emily. Like it's my show, no guest. It was a first-time guest. He looked so much like my late father-in-law. I found it distracting to talk to him because I was like, I felt like I was seeing my late father-in-law, but.
It was great
that
you love him.
I was never offended if the chat's like, bring somebody in. You bring in as many guests as you can. But I was offended that you didn't make me a mind map when I did come on.
Well, that'll never get old. That one's never going to get old.
That is going to be there for years.
Thanks, Robert.
So, Joe, what's Farmer testifying about, and why is it relevant for the charges against Maxwell?
Okay, so her testimony was actually about far more limited engagement than any of the first we talked about. Really, all she said is that she came to New York to visit her sister. Her sister was working for Epstein. Epstein flew her out there, and that Ghislaine Maxwell was not involved at all in this trip to New York. She never met her in New York, didn't even know her name when she left New York. But while on that trip to New York, she met Epstein, who was basically promising her the sun and the moon as to how he's going to help her get into college and potentially pay for college. And that she ended up in a movie theater with him sitting between Sister Maria and Annie. And during the course of the movie, he started touching her arm and her foot and her shoe. And what made her feel particularly uncomfortable about it is that when he would turn to Maria, he would stop doing it, as if he was trying to hide what he was doing from Maria. Now, this what strengthens her testimony, perhaps more than any of them, and I guess almost irrefutably stronger than any of them, is that she actually kept a journal. This happened in late 95, early 96. She was there for New Year's in 96. And she came back, and in January of 96, in her journal, she made 2 entries. The first one was just talking about New York on January 6th. And then a few weeks later, she makes a more detailed entry on January 25th of her visit to New York, where she documents everything that she described on testimony about the touching and everything of that nature, and about Maria, and how she felt so conflicted about it and didn't want to tell Maria because she knows that Maria worships Jeffrey and doesn't want to create some sort of issue there. All the stuff that she was testifying about was documented in this journal. Now, where does Ghislaine come into this? Well, a few months later, in April of 96, she was living in Nevada, and she gets a ticket from Jeffrey Epstein to fly to his ranch in New Mexico, that's how we get our interstate crossing that initially the state wanted to use as a basis to convict him for the federal charges of crossing a minor across a state line for the purposes of engaging in illegal sexual conduct. And that's while in New Mexico, that's where she first met Ghislaine, who seemed not at all surprised to see her, and how they went shopping together, and they bought her boots, and then they come back to the ranch, and it's only the 3 of them in this big, massive house. And Ghislaine starts telling her, you need to learn how to rub Jeffrey's feet, how to massage his feet, and that they each took a foot and were massaging, and she was showing her how to do it and how she felt really uncomfortable. And then Jeffrey leaves, and Ghislaine says she wants to give her a massage and has her get completely undressed and starts on her back and then flips her over starts on her front, on her stomach, and giving her a massage, and then has Annie flip onto her back and lowers the sheet to expose the top half of her. And the door is open, and she feels like Jeffrey Epstein. She's not sure if Jeffrey can watch them or not while she's doing this, but she felt really uncomfortable. She's 16 at the time, and that she basically got a full chest rub from Ghislaine Maxwell. Then later that night, she was when she was in bed, Jeffrey came bounding into the room and said, like he was all excited. He's like, it's snuggle time, or he wants to snuggle, or whatever the hell. And he jumped into bed with her, wrapped his arms around her and his legs around her legs, and she was like freaked out, thinking, I don't even know if I'm in danger if I try leaving. There's no one will hear me for miles. So like a few moments later, she said she had to go to the bathroom, and she locked the door and stayed in there until he left. That was the full extent. Now, obviously, this is all horrific things for a 50-year-old to do to a 16-year-old. Or in the situation of Ghislaine, she was in her 30s at the time. But it was designed to basically show a few things that we've heard consistent with testimony given by prior victims. Specifically, we had Jane, who's really right now the strongest federal claim against Ghislaine Maxwell, who had described that Ghislaine was teaching her how to please Jeffrey, and that was the nature of this whole thing, and acting like silly and girlishly when talking about sex, far below the way a woman in her 30s, especially someone who's constantly referred to as being sophisticated, you would expect to be talking in that type of manner, unless there's an ulterior motive of trying to make it all seem innocent and no big deal. So that was really the extent of the testimony. There was no journal entries about New Mexico. There was a later trip to Thailand, but there didn't seem to be any. I'm not even sure if Jeffrey went there on that trip to Thailand. It was a little unclear from the testimony. And that was basically the direct. We're 15 minutes into cross-examination. I'm not going to be able to be there for this afternoon session because I have to get home for Sabbath. But and we might actually be done with testimony today. It's possible, because
what happened with the illness of the lawyer?
There was no further explanation. We got nothing on that. We don't even know which lawyer. We don't even know which lawyer, other than the fact that someone I met with today told me that the judge said that what he had heard was the judge said that he is sick. So yeah, it was basically
there was no.
And now it's down to 3 people. And now it's down to 3 people out of like the 8 lawyers, because everyone here is a woman. Most people here are women. And by the way, the women have been, to my mind, far out lawyering the men. Almost every one of them has been like far out lawyering. There've been some glitches along the way over the last couple of days, but certainly with respect to the defense side of things, Christian Everdell is a man. He's for the defense. He's been fairly strong. But the female attorneys we've seen have been really strong here. So go women, go girl power.
Young female victims and a female defendant, you kind of have to have heavily female lawyers, or you're going to damage your case. Either prosecution looking like they're beating up on the defendant, or the defense looking like they're beating up on the victims.
Yeah.
And your point is well taken. I was surprised to see Jeff Tagliabue handle the cross-examination of Carolyn. And someone actually I heard talking yesterday said that they felt that who was in the jury room. Because I'm in a viewing room. The camera angle they give us does not enable us to see the jurors. There's only 3 people who show up at 4 a.m. who are able to actually see the jury. There's like 3 or 4 people who are not outside, who are not family, who are able to like go in there, sit, and they show up at 4 a.m. to get in there, and they're able to see the jury. And I was talking to one of them who was there when Carolyn was being cross-examined. Understand that her cross-examination, her direct testimony was an hour to an hour and a quarter, and her cross-examination was 4.5 hours. And he wasn't angry in his tone, but he was just relentlessly nitpicking on any inconsistency at all during numerous statements. And some of them were actually pretty sizable issues of inconsistent with respect to an action that she filed in 2008, another she filed in 2009, statements she made to the FBI in 2019. And apparently, the reason I brought this up with respect to the Carolyn testimony is what I was told is that at least 4 of the jurors were sitting there just looking very crossly at Jeff Tagliabue while he was doing cross-examination, and one of them was described as like violently shaking her head like back and forth like much of the time while that cross-examination was happening. Now, I'll tell you right now, if they were going, as far as conviction and where they're at, considering they lost 2 of the people here, and the reason they lost it was really just that the law sucks for the prosecution, in that the conduct with respect to Kate, when she was in London, she was 17. She's not considered underage, and that the state that they happened to pick to build their ranch, New Mexico, the age of consent is 16. So, and that's the age that Annie was when she was enduring this abuse, and that's why the judge gave it. What?
That feels intentional to pick New Mexico.
Perhaps.
Yeah, it is intentional. You think they don't do these things and no? Come on.
Is there a state that is lower than 16 in the United States?
There's countries that are way lower than 16. So.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I don't want to make a mistake. I thought in Canada it was 14, but I'm not sure if they.
Yeah, I think it depends.
In New York, I'm pretty sure it's 17. At least it was in the 90s when I was taking my bar exam.
So
it's 12. It's 12 across the bay from here.
Answer is I have no idea. That's what you're supposed to say.
Okay, so it's 60. It's 16 in Canada, and I'm going to see if it was changed. I remember there was an issue about that. Anyhow, but Joe, what the question about the lawyer I just meant was that was there any lawyer absent today?
You're moving. Are we all waiting for Viva?
No, we're waiting for you.
Joe, let me explain to you how the internet works.
Ask me questions. I'll give you answers.
Well, no,
series of tubes.
Was there any lawyer absent between yesterday and today, or were all the lawyers present? Were even the one who was sick yesterday?
So you have to realize that they're not always all sitting there. On the defense table, there's Ghislaine Maxwell's obviously sitting there the entire time. She wears a mask the size of a woman's purse and blocks like almost all. You can see nothing but her eyes practically. Today you can see a little forehead. And then there's only 2 seats next to her, and they really rotate who sits there. The only, it's always either Bobby Sternheim or Laura Menninger is the one who usually sits next to her. And then there's Jeff Tagliabue and Christian Everdell. So, yeah, I haven't seen Christian Everdell today at all, but that's not surprising because
tell those kids in the background to be quiet, Joe. Tell those kids to be
quiet. Hush down. All right. So I haven't seen Christian Everdell at all today. Whether he was the one who was sick or not, I don't know. It seems unlikely because he was the one who did the cross-exam. We had like an hour of testimony yesterday and cross-examination. And that cross-examination, not a lot of people are talking about it, but it's actually pretty damning. What happened was, we're trying to get federal charges. It's not just like, you abuse a minor, but you have to get this whole interstate element brought into it in order to rise to the level of being federal charges. Now, 3 of the victims flew across state lines, but 2 of those 3 who flew were above the age of consent, and they're gone. So what we're left with is Jane, who was flown from at the age of perhaps as young as 14 and maybe as old as 16 from Palm Beach, New York. So there you would have the interstate travel. Carolyn, who was arguably the most compelling one in her impassioned crying out, how the hell did we get justice here, in a way that broke everyone's heart. The problem is she didn't cross state lines. She stayed in Florida the entire time. So how do you have interstate? Well, the way they have interstate is that she received a FedEx package, and that was you. And a FedEx package that was sent from New York, and under the writing of the statute, if you use interstate mail or a courier for the purpose of inducing someone to engage in illegal sexual conduct, that is now a federal crime. So she received some lingerie. This is how the federal government is able to get in and charge on her behalf. She was the last victim added only in March. Ghislaine was charged a year ago. This past March, Carolyn was added in as a 4th victim. Initially, with 3 victims. Carolyn was added in as the 4th victim. So the 3rd one testified, but the 4th victim added in the charging documents. And the basis of bringing her in is this FedEx package. And the problem that the state is having, because she was the most impassioned one, is that when they called in the FedEx courier and they looked through his account, so many times it says Ghislaine Maxwell sent different packages out, but that particular package doesn't say Ghislaine Maxwell. It says Epstein sent it out. So then you have the question, well, how can she be convicted of this interstate issue if she's not the one who sent the package? Which, if she gets knocked out, we're basically down to Jane. Now, so that's what I'm saying is Jane's testimony, there certainly was enough there that she could satisfy to get her convicted on all of these charges. She was badgered a lot, and her testimony was really, beaten around. And the most likely scenario, if you're looking at a conviction here, is based on the fact that the jury hates the defense because they see how evil this conduct was. And there's enough there that they can, especially with all the corroboration and different people coming in and telling these different things and some of the physical evidence, that you can see the conduct that was happening there. And if you're looking to convict, there's enough to hang your hat on. So
Joe,
it's really a matter as to whether or not they're looking to convict or not.
Joe, I'm curious, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, but are they really just trying to convict Epstein in effigy? I mean, is she his effigy?
I mean, it's hard to say that because there would be no finding of that. Would still be not guilty. That wouldn't be convicting him in effigy. If anything, it would be acquitting him in effigy. Because if your whole focus is purely on Epstein, no one's even seeing this trial. You could make that argument that what you're saying, if this was something the entire world was watching, that, hey, we're going to have a full display here as to how evil Epstein is. No one is able to get access to this unless you live in the area here and you want to invest the time to come down here. But there's under 100 people who fit that description from what I've seen.
But I mean, he was never convicted, and
he was convicted. He was convicted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, he's not his
right.
latest round. He managed to escape
right.
conviction when
right.
he didn't Epstein himself.
But I mean, you kind of have to find guilt of Epstein in order to find guilt of Maxwell.
Correct. I agree with you on that, LegalBytes.
So,
yeah, you have to. So and he's the one who's benefiting from it. And really, the whole point is how she set this whole thing up in motion, and that without her, there's no way that this comes to be the way it came to be.
Yeah,
so,
but for her.
What's shocking is just that
no sine qua non. Sorry, that's a legal reference. He says that lawyers always say "but for" sine qua non. There you go.
The emphasis is only on Ghislaine and only on a couple of the victims, and not on the adult individuals who were procuring these services to go after them with the full extent of the law, and that's going to leave everyone bitter. And by the way,
sorry, there are I do have to wrap up like in 5 minutes. I got to start heading home. There are countless questions that people ask about the way this trial was conducted. When they're showing the flight logs, they redacted everything in its entirety. When the judge even chastised them after she saw it, and she's like, "Why would you redact anything more than the names of the actual victims and protect them, and leave all other people who flew on there?" And there's obvious reasons why they might have wanted to do that. The obvious political reasons as to why they would have wanted to do that. And everyone's already focused on the fact that Maureen Comey is the daughter of James Comey, and she's the one who's leading the prosecution here. So, and then there's all sorts of other questions. Why is Virginia Roberts not here? There are hundreds of victims, 24 of whom stood before Judge Berman shortly after Epstein's death, and to get it off their chest, their story. And we have all 4 people here. I mean, as Inner City Press pointed out on Viva Frei last night, that you can pound home how evil these people are and bring in some more and more corroboration as to the pattern here. If you get these people in here, it's difficult to imagine why it is that there was not more testimony from people who suffered from their abuse.
Well,
so
when you have a picture of Epstein and Maxwell with the Queen of England, I mean, you could put 2 and 2 together real quick.
With the Pope, with Fidel Castro, with everyone.
But it doesn't make sense that, I mean, to the point I think is that why were they willing to come forward in Epstein's trial but not in Ghislaine Maxwell's trial, right? Because you're saying that they had that opportunity, they had that evidence, and it's not being presented here.
It's very, very mystifying. Unless, look, maybe many of them had nothing to do with Ghislaine Maxwell. I don't know. It seems difficult to believe because, I mean, she was so around him all the time, and she seemed very, very happy to be constantly finding and searching out. When Kate told her story, again, she was of age. She was 17, so she was obviously a very grown, mature adult. But she located Kate on her own. She was like, Jeffrey Epstein wasn't even around. Had Kate come to her house, and Kate said she wasn't thinking about Jeffrey Epstein. She admired Ghislaine and wanted to live the type of life that's developed into the woman that Ghislaine already was, and she felt that this friendship would help her in that, work in that avenue. She wanted to go to Oxford, and I think Ghislaine had been a graduate of Oxford, and she admired and respected Ghislaine, which is a constant theme that we're seeing, that everyone who meets her seems really impressed with her, unless they have to work for her in an underdog capacity, in which case they think she's Cruella de Vil. But when she wants to charm people, apparently she's very effective at it and can be woman of the world. And that's what Kate wanted. And my point is that with respect to grooming Kate, it was almost exclusively like Jeffrey Epstein did nothing. She brought her to her house, and then after she comes to her, come over, then we'll talk. And she starts talking about her life. She's like, you need to meet this guy, Jeffrey Epstein. He'll be great. She brings her back to meet Jeffrey Epstein. She tells Jeffrey, you should feel how strong she is. Feel how strong she is. Dig your hands into his shoulders. I mean, everything here. And then the next thing 2 weeks later, she gets another call from Ghislaine saying, hey, Jeffrey's masseuse canceled. Since you have such strong hands, we're wondering maybe you come by and fill in. And she goes in there, and Ghislaine basically walks into a room with Jeffrey Epstein wearing nothing but a robe, and then Ghislaine's standing in the doorway. She's like, have fun, and she closes the door. And Jeffrey drops his robe, and the next thing you know, she's engaged in a full Epstein massage. And when she comes out, Ghislaine is like, well, was it fun? Wasn't it great? Did you have a good time? This is a totally normal thing for everyone to do, to meet someone 30 years older than them and all of a sudden engage in this type of act. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is to tell you that Ghislaine was clearly very involved in searching out women. We heard from Juan Alessi how she drove up and down in Florida. She directed him to drive to massage parlor after massage parlor from Boca Raton to Jupiter, Florida, and even massage parlor schools, trying to basically find one masseuse after another. So I don't understand how there's not more victims who were directly dealing with Ghislaine and could shed some light for the jury to say that this woman was basically very proactive in trying to procure more and more girls to satiate his insatiable hunger.
Well, considering what happened to Caroline, right?
Yeah, she was 14, Caroline.
Yeah, and considering her story and where she started off in life and how sort of she was found.
Caroline is not the London one. That's Kate. Kate is in London. Caroline. The problem with Caroline is that she had too little involvement with Ghislaine. That's really, when you hear her story, it's really mostly a Jeffrey Epstein story.
Well,
she throws Ghislaine in there a lot, and she was the youngest one. She was turned 13, maybe 14.
Yeah,
and she was kicked out when she turned 18 for being too old.
Well, the point that I was going to make on that is that it seems like she's a very good example of the vulnerability that a lot of these girls had when they were found. So there's also a very good possibility that there are many, many, many more girls turned women who found themselves in other bad circumstances because of their overall circumstances. So, or, for whatever reason, they got involved in drugs and crime and all kinds of stuff. They may not be around, or if they are, maybe they want absolutely nothing to do with it because of the horrible things that have happened. So those are all possibilities as well.
Yeah, that seems unlikely. As LegalBytes had just pointed, I think it was LegalBytes that just pointed out that dozens of them testified 2 years ago. Why aren't they here now?
Well,
because I would get it if they couldn't find anybody, but
everybody
because they
universally knows. I don't know a single person. Nobody in the world believes Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. Everybody knows that he was murdered. Everybody knows there are dozens of people at various levels of the federal government that were in on it. Everybody accepts that, and I really got to fly, guys, because
thanks,
I
realize
how late it is.
Adios.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, I'll catch you soon.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, everybody knows that we're never going to get answers about that, and it's just universally accepted. So that's a level of power that's just so beyond absurd that I'm sure a lot of people just are like, you know what, I don't want to get involved with this at all. It's pretty clear that it's way above my head.
Now that Joe
somebody got my mug,
we've got to go and have a little bit of a meme tour that's going on unstructured.locals.com. Tape Damage has been illustriously working in the background, doing it live. Free Allison. Got LegalBytes. Legal Mindset. Fred and Emily. We got Rich here.
Emily was doing the sniffing the cat and make sure that it's okay. It's up to par. What do we got there?
I look surprised.
No, but I have to duck out as well because I got to go pick up one child then another. Everybody, this has been fantastic.
It's been great.
And we should do
See
it
you soon,
sometime.
Viva.
All right, guys, have a good weekend.
See you, David.
Everyone.
Thanks,
Okay.
And I think I have to pile on as long as we're doing this. I have a hard stop. So I very much appreciate the invite, Eric.
Of course.
And I had a lot of fun. I also got a little distracted there in the middle because a big story broke about Bungie facing similar situation to Activision. And Activision's put out notes to their proto union, now collecting union cards, and that's getting reported on as well. So you might see me up again in virtual legality. I seemingly will never run out of Activision Blizzard / just toxic video game culture videos. So we'll see how it goes.
Toxic bro culture for the win and or loss.
Well, I tell you what, before I go,
depending on the context, right?
Is this stuff breaks on Activision in July from California, right? And most of the industry keeps its heads down, with one exception. Bungie comes out with a huge statement at the time about how great they are. And so I in my video, I can go find the clip. I probably will. I say, well, that's odd. That's a weird thing to just insert yourself into the story and say, well, we're definitely better than Activision. So today's a different story. So we'll be talking about that as well at some point, maybe next week. Either way, thank you so much for the invite. Had a lot of fun.
Awesome.
And certainly learned a lot for stuff that I haven't been following as much. So thanks again.
Thank you. See you next time.
See you, Rick.
All right. And then there were 5.
Well,
Agatha Christie novel.
2 hours. It is that time.
It is that time. And it's actually a good time to wrap up. So everyone, be a good time to promote what you have. I let everybody escape without promoting, but it's Viva Frei is the biggest channel here. People know that. And Joe's on fire.
Promote. I feel like there was midstream
promotion. Yeah.
Cross stream promotion.
I did. So I'm actually one of the other things I'm going to be doing with my new locals setup. I haven't mentioned this yet. I talked to Legal Mindset about it. I'm going to have to do a standalone video because it's really confusing. But actually, since you and I talked about it, there's an issue with a cryptocurrency exchange where there could be major litigation against them. And I think I just discovered a cause of action. Since he and I talked about it, actually, I found out something else. That Binance.
Which exchange?
Is one of the biggest
Binance.
Binance. So Binance, when you go to Binance,
no. Coinbase is the one you'd be suing.
If you go to withdraw funds from Binance and send it to your Coinbase account, it'll automatically by default select Binance Smart Chain, right? So that's like MoneyGram and Western Union are different ways of sending money, right? So they have their version, their blockchain. And by default, it selects it and it says, we've scanned your receive address. It's compatible and this is what we recommend. And then it shows a lower fee and a faster arrival time. And by default, it selects their own. And every person that does that, their money never makes it to Coinbase because Coinbase can't see that Binance blockchain thing. I'm going to do a standalone video to explain it in a way where people can actually understand it. But I'm pretty sure there could be a cause of action against Binance because I think what they're actually doing is intentionally tricking people because all of Coinbase's customers are flipping out on Coinbase, trying to get them to adopt Binance's blockchain so they can get access to their funds that are just sitting in the cloud there.
Oh, no.
So by tricking people to all of these exchanges, every customer at Coinbase, Crypto.com, Kraken is flipping out on customer support. I actually have a support group of like 2,500 people this has happened to. I just sort of accidentally fell into guiding these people. I haven't lost money because of this, but a lot of people have. Millions, tens of millions. And I'm pretty sure Binance is intentionally doing it to manipulate the customer bases of all the other exchanges to press them to adopt Binance's blockchain. I just figured it out. So I'm going to do a standalone video on it and I'll share it with you guys and you can let me know what you think. But I think this could be huge. Tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars worth of cryptocurrency. Just sitting there.
Yeah.
And especially like at this point during a market cycle, a lot of people are going to be wanting to be able to move their stuff. Otherwise, it's going to become potentially valueless for a while.
And here's the other thing:
2,500 people in this Discord group I set up who are like, they come to the group and say, "Can I get my money?" And I've been telling them for a year and a half, you have to wait until Coinbase accepts that Binance Smart Chain. There's nothing you could do in the meantime. And I just found out that Binance automatically, when you go and do a withdrawal, it automatically selects their blockchain and says, "Oh, we've scanned your receive address and it's compatible," when it's actually not. There's no way for it to know if it is, but they shouldn't be saying it is because it tricks people.
Right.
So yeah, it's crazy. So I will keep an eye out for that. I'll share a bunch of info about that.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting.
For sure. And LegalBytes, what do you have coming up?
I have so for me, I'm actually about to fly back to the States for Christmas to be with family. So I'm gonna be I'm still gonna be doing my latest in the law every week. I'm gonna try to add in some other live streams, some other maybe some pre-recorded stuff in between. But that's basically that. I've been heading over to Nick Rekieta's live stream for Potter, for the Kim Potter trial, and that's been really interesting. And very productive. So, but otherwise, you guys can find me on obviously YouTube, LegalBytes. I also have LegalBytes clips now. So, because I've been doing a lot of live streaming, so not everybody can sit through 4 or 5 hours of live streams. So I've started to upload clips to LegalBytes clips. So if you guys are interested in that, be sure to head over there, watch some videos, subscribe, so you can get more stuff like that. And then otherwise, I'm pretty much on all of the platforms. Just look for LegalBytes.
And I think, Emily, you have a show tonight. I've got a show today.
I do have a show tonight. I do a Friday Night Live every Friday night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, covering a wide variety of topics of what's been going on in the law. Tonight, since there is still confusion over the potential sentencing for Josh Duggar, I'll be talking about that. There was Britney Spears's family father was in court this week. We'll be talking about that, among other things. So if you guys are into mostly legal pop culture, that is what I cover over at the Emily D. Baker on the YouTubes, the Twitters, the Instagrams.
Andrew's headed to bed, I think.
Oh, 100%. It's 4 a.m. here. But if you want to find me when it's not 4 a.m. in Seoul, you can find me at legalmindset.locals.com. Also, by Twitter, I've been doing a little bit more of that. It's the Legal Mindset. But yeah, guys, I've got some good stuff coming up. I actually have this guy, Greg Kelly, who I've been talking to, has a fascinating case involving Nissan, the Japanese justice system. So I'm going to bring out a couple big videos on that.
Oh, Gosen?
Yes, the Gosen stuff. I've got a lot of background stuff on that, a lot of documents that have been released to me. So really good stuff coming on that. Really crazy stuff that's going on over there. They have zero due process in Japan. It's insane. Yeah, check that out. I'm also going to be filming some more casual content this weekend since it is Saturday tomorrow. So be doing some fun stuff.
Awesome. And folks, if you're interested in more Baldwin, we're on number 8 of Alec Baldwin. We're breaking some more news tonight on the case. Another person coming through. It's my other channel, America's Untold Stories. So if you haven't subscribed here, please subscribe. Consider going over there, subscribing, and checking it out. We really have been working the Baldwin case pretty hard, and there's other really cool stories too, obviously. But if you want more Baldwin, I hope everybody checks it out. And for now, thank you.